Well, we're happy you guys are here today. It's a really cold morning and glad you braved this re-entry of winter into our lives. But we want to welcome you to the 39th Annual Nashville Conference on African American History and Culture. I'm Tim Walker, the Executive Director of the Metro Historical Commission, and it's been a great honor for our commission to co-sponsor this event through its 39 years with TSU. And 39 years, what a long time. I think the only member here that I see who's been here since the beginning is Miss Wynn, and I'm not sure if she ever thought the conference would still be going on in 2020, but here we are, and next year is a really milestone year. So this conference has really been a great success over the 39 years. It went from what was a conference that took place in a single classroom with a few dozen people to today where we have over 300 people registered, which is pretty fabulous. And you'll notice you got 4 new profiles this year. This really adds to the accomplishments of the conference. We now have over 130 profiles that have been written or presented at the conference. And over the years, there have been more than 260 presentations and performances. It's really quite a success. Well, before we get started, I want to take a quick moment and I want to thank those who are responsible for making this day a success. And so I want to recognize the planning committee. I know a number of those members are here with us now. Some will be arriving later. And so if they would please stand as I call their name, and if you'd hold your applause until everybody's standing. So first, if I could recognize Dr. Revis Mitchell and Linda Wynn, and committee members Gloria Johnson, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts at TSU, Glenda Alvin, Pamela Bobo, Katie Ewing, Gloria McKissick, Jessica Reeves, Jamal Sheets, Sharon Hull Smith, and Lee Williams. Let's give them a round of applause, please. It couldn't happen without these people who work all year, especially Linda, who takes such a leadership role in it. I also want to take a moment to recognize our county historian, Dr. Carol Busey. Would she stand? And the Metro Historical Commission members who are here with us. Would you please stand? Thank you. And finally, I want to thank the TSU and Historical Commission staff who are working registration this morning. They're Christy Green, Scarlett Miles, Carolyn Eller, and Susie Pallas. I want to thank them. And before I hand the podium over to Miss Wynn, you should have gotten a bag like this as your profiles and other information came in. It says Nashville Sites. I hope you'll take a minute to check it out. There's a rat card in there, and there's a one-pager that explains some of the African-American related tours that are part of Nashville Sites. That's a mobile-friendly website and app that was launched in November by our office with our foundation and many other institutions, including TSU. And a note, and it's listed in there, Dr. Williams on the planning committee wrote 2 of the tours, and Ms. Wynn wrote 1, so you'll have to go and check those out. Well, finally, to finish this morning's welcome, I want to hand the podium over to Ms. Linda Wynn. Everyone who knows Linda knows she stays very busy. She wears a lot of hats, and besides being a co-founder of the conference, she's a noted writer and historian. She's a faculty member in the history department at Fisk University. She's the assistant director of state programs at the Tennessee Historical Commission, and I'm proud to say, and I think this is 6th year, she's a member of the Metro Historical Commission. So, Ms. Wynn.
Thank you, Tim. Again, let me wish each and every one of you a happy Valentine's Day. And thank you for braving the cold and being here this morning. It is much colder than it was yesterday at this time. My sister called me this morning and asked me if I knew it was 21 degrees outside, and I told her no. She says, well, you probably need to dress appropriately, so I appreciated her calling me. I would like to thank the financial contributors without whom this conference would not be possible. Kibalon Images has been with us for 39 years. Armagh, the Frieson Foundation has been with us for 39 years. Holy Trinity Episcopal Church, we have a new financial sponsor this year, the Metro Historical Commission Foundation. Jefferson Street Baptist Church, the Tennessee Historical Society, which has been with us for 39 years. Spruce Street Baptist Church, 39 years, and TSU Friends of the Library. Let's give them applause, because without them, this wouldn't be possible. I would also like to thank Dean Gloria Johnson, who will not be able to be here this morning, for her continued support of the conference. We have already mentioned Christy Green, but I want to mention her again, who is in Dean Johnson's office, because she takes care of all of the minute details for putting the conference together. I want to thank the staff of the Tennessee Historical Commission and its director, Patrick McIntyre. Will the staff of the commission please stand? It's always good to have support from your colleagues. Also would like to thank the history departments of Tennessee State University and Fisk University. Will you please stand? And we certainly want to thank the 2020 presenters who agreed to share their time and their research with you this morning and this afternoon. I also bring greetings from Dr. Revis Mitchell, the co-chair of the conference, who could not be here today, but he wanted me to tell you in his absence that this is the first year that he has ever missed a conference, and he thanks all of you who have thought about him over the last year, and he hopes to see you next year. Last but certainly not least, I would like to thank the history majors at Fisk University who are serving as ushers this morning, and they are Terry Blackburn, who is the only sociology major, Imani Campbell, Cassandra Hanna, Elijah Martin, Sierra Poole, Paul Springer, D'Angelo Stargell. They are serving as ushers. So if you need any assistance, they will be in the back, and they will be glad to assist you up or down the steps. And in my closing remarks for this part, I would like to mention, lest we forget, this is the sesquicentennial of the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution. It is the centennial of the Constitution's 19th Amendment. It is also the 60th anniversary of the Nashville sit-in movement, the bombing of Z. Alexander's home, the silent march in protest against white supremacists, the desegregation of Nashville lunch counters and other public accommodations. It is the founding of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, better known as SNCC. Also the Freedom Rides. Remember, Nashville activists played key roles in the 1963 March on Washington, the Birmingham Campaign. They were the frontline leaders of the Mississippi Freedom Summer of 1964, and they were in the struggle to gain voting rights in Selma. All of these events were at the apogee of the modern civil rights struggle for human rights. As the late historian and Fisk University alumnus John Hope Franklin said of them, they were probably the most courageous and the most selfless civil rights workers. Thank you. Hope you enjoy the conference.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome all of my neighbors, my friends, my colleagues to this 39th annual conference. We're happy that you are joining us on a journey from enslavement to liberation. We hope you enjoy your day. We hope you enjoy all of our lectures as well as lunch. Our first presenter is a former TSU student, Bridget Jones. Bridget graduated from the Department of History, Political Science, Geography, and Africana Studies. In the past, she has served as Director of American African Studies at the Bellmead Plantation. She is a native Memphian. Her focus is 20th century history, civil rights, and American chattel enslavement. Recently, she was nominated for 40 under 40 at Tennessee State University. Her presentation today is Tennessee Slavery, Perspectives, Parallels, and Psychology in relation to the Bellmead Plantation. Ms. Bridget Jones.
Hey, y'all. What y'all will learn about me through this presentation is that I'm very happily as Southern as I can possibly be. And so you will realize that here in just a moment. So let's get this all set up. For those of you who have never seen or been to the Bellmead Plantation, this is what that big, beautiful building looks like from the inside. And Bellmead is a very peculiar type of plantation because they didn't grow any cash crop. So there was no cotton, there was no tobacco, there was no sugar cane at Bellmead. They raised a horse farm. Not regular horses, the best race horses of the era. Premier, thoroughbred race horses. It's a big deal and it's big money. And due to the industry, Bellmead had a huge enslaved population. By 1860, the Harding and Jackson family owned 136 men, women, and children. That put them in the top 4.5% of slaveholders in the state of Tennessee by 1860. So this family was a big deal in Nashville in that point in time. So what my thing is I do this weird blend of forensics. Everybody know what forensics is? It's like the art of spoken word. And I blend that with historic fact. So this isn't a typical tour. I'm trying to put you in the mind of the people that were there, which is why I call it Perspectives, Parallels, and Psychology, because you gotta address all three when you address enslavement. So we're gonna use one person in particular, and her name is Susanna Carter. Now, Susanna Carter is at the top of the food chain at Bellmead. Susanna Carter is the head of domestic staff. So that means that, yes, she's a house slave, but she is also the head house slave. She's a big deal in her own right. But Miss Carter has a very intriguing backstory. You see, Susanna Carter has two conflicting backstories. And I'm going to tell you both of them, and I'll let you figure out what you want to believe for yourself. Now, what I know to be a fact is that she came to Bellmead from the Carnton Plantation. And for those of you who know about Carnton, you know that Carnton was the site for the Battle of Franklin during the Civil War. And you know that Carnton was a Confederate hospital during the war. So Carnton is a huge Confederate memorial site today. Now, recent research has shown that there's a strong possibility that Susanna Carter could have been born and raised at Carnton. This only intrigued me because I went and talked to Susanna Carter's descendants. And you see, And they believe that because of this, their father left his free biracial children in Randall McGavin's care to go on a business trip, and he died. So Miss Carter's descendants believe that Randall McGavin illegally enslaved Susanna Carter and each of her siblings. Now today, I can't tell you which one of these stories is true. The only thing I know for a fact is that in 1849, at about 14 years old, Susanna Carter arrives at Belmead in the last will and testament of Mrs. McGavin. Her last will and testament reads, "To my infant granddaughter, Mary Selina Harding, I give and bequeath my servant girl Susanna. So should that child die before me, I then leave the girl Susanna to my daughter Elizabeth Harding, wife of William Giles." So by our standards and our terms today, that would mean that in 1849, at about 14 years old, Susanna Carter became a baby shower present. See, she did it to an infant, and she gets to spend the rest of her life at Belmead, referred to as the trusted house slave of William Giles Harding. Now, in this picture, you can see Susanna Carter standing behind Celine, that's that infant, she's all grown up now, and her husband, General Jackson. Now, in 1886, Miss Carter got a very rare opportunity because she was interviewed. She was given an opportunity to tell her side of the story. And in 1886, a man named Charles Dudley Warner visited Nashville, and he's traveling here with Harper's Weekly. And when he arrived, you can't come to Nashville in 1886 and not stop at the premier thoroughbred nursery in the nation, the one that used to own 136 people. So when he arrived, he spoke to General Jackson. And he asked General Jackson what was in that period, a very simple question. He said, "Sir, could you introduce me to a real Southern mammy?" Mammy is a very intriguing person and theory almost when we look at historic documents, because when most people think about mammy, especially most people my age, we dive head first into Aunt Jemima biscuits and cornbread. Now, my parents' age, they dive head first into Gone with the Wind. Hattie McDaniel, Happy, Docile Dog, and Love Master. It's funny because this card plays in both categories. But our goal is to try to figure out why. I'm going to give you some of the questions that she was asked in her interview, and we're going to break them down. The first thing that she was asked in this interview was, "Miss Carter, what did you do with the family silver during the Civil War? I was told that you hid the silver for them." And Miss Carter's response was, "Sir, ain't you from the North? Sir, I can't tell you that. You's a Yankee. And if there's another war, sir, you gonna come right on down here and get that silver." Now, I'm gonna be full transparent here. When I first read this interview, I was like, yo, she tripped. Because, I mean, honestly, the silver didn't even make my list of stuff I thought she should be caring about. But I had to take myself out of it, put myself into her shoes, and try to see this through her lens for a moment. So let's review her answer. You see, what she said was that, "Sir, I can't tell you because you're a Yankee. I can't tell you because you're from the North. And so if there's another war, you gonna come right on down here and get that silver because you're from the North. So if there's another war, if told me that by 1886, Susanna Carter still ain't trusting that new freedom that she had." But put yourself in her shoes for a moment. Think about it. If you've been a slave your entire life, if everybody that looks like you has been a slave their entire life, do you believe in freedom? As of 1831, technically, it's illegal for free black people to reside in the state of Tennessee. William Giles Harding sat on the committee that enforced that law, because what you don't want is a population of enslaved black people looking at a population of free black people, then admiring and aspiring and hoping and dreaming for all those crazy notions and ideas. You know, wild stuff like freedom. You can show freedom. You were supposed to get out of Tennessee, but she was just getting started. She also went then took the cake like her conclusion. You see, she finished her interview by saying that slaves and slavery for her was really not that bad. She said that slavery for her was less the whip and the lash. It was actually more sharing lamb and peas with master. Now, you see, it's easy for us to sit in our collective memory today and just agree that slavery was wrong. We can easily understand that slavery only continued as long as it did through violence on one hand, and then the threat of violence on the other hand. See, you got to beat people into this type of submission. Be that beating a physical beating or the most important beating of all, the mental one. You see, the fact that she could say in a sentence that, yes, I understand there's violence associated with this institution, but turn around in the same sentence and negate that same fact by saying, well, it's cool though, because at Bell Child, we had snack time too. What does that actually say about her psychological state at this point? You see, if you want to argue this with a shrink, they'd probably tell you she had Stockholm Syndrome. See, Stockholm Syndrome is an unhealthy dependence upon a captor, but you typically only see it in kidnapped victims. Now, that's a parallel. Now, if you were to argue this with someone that had been to or worked in a prison, well, they may say that she was institutionalized. You see, that means that you ain't had freedom in so long that once you got it, you didn't want it because you didn't know what to do with it anyway. And there's a parallel. You see, our goal here is to draw parallels between yesterday and today, so let's begin. If the prison system is the new slavery, like they say it is, and if you look at the prison system, and the interesting amount of people that just so happen to go to the prison and just so happen to look like me, the interesting stretch of the time they get in comparison to their counterparts. The fact that about 19% of U.S. prisons operating in America are operating for a profit, and some of these prisons even sit on the same ground or former plantations, like it ain't Angola Penitentiary in Louisiana. Well, I guess we might be on something, huh? But then there's one last question. People hate the last question. You see, interviews like Ms. Carter's, they soothe consciousness for years and allow people to say stuff like, well, they said they was happy. But I mean, honestly, in 1886, as she's sitting in the gorgeous dining room at the Bellevue Plantation, talking to this random white guy that popped up on the front porch on Tuesday, talking about, tell me the truth. In 1886, as she's sitting at the table with the man that used to own her, the one that still employs her, in 1886, is Susanna Carter, a black woman in the South, sitting in that dining room in the position to tell the truth. See, slave narratives become popular in the 20th century. Around 1929, a woman named Ophelia Egypt, representing Fisk University, she went out through the South and she did the first slave narrative project. And you see, those interviews are some of the most chilling depictions of the life under slavery was. You see, those interviews would hit you dead in your chest. Those interviews are powerful. But you see, those interviews were never widely circulated, but another set was. You see, in the 1930s, as a result of the New Deal, the Works Progress Administration was founded. Now, the Works Progress Administration was a predominantly white organization that 6 days a week, from KC to KC. And then they go home to roughly 15 by 15 box that they share with 8 to 10 people. Your rations that they'll need are bacon and cornmeal. You get 4 pounds of bacon and 1 pound of cornmeal per week. You split that between about 8 to 10 people. Now, I wouldn't call that glamorous, of course. Now, in comparison to the people that work in the house. Typically, they do live a little bit better because in some cases, they live in the house, in the barracks that were available for them. They typically eat a little bit better. But honestly, if you work in the kitchen with all the food, child, I was gonna eat better too. They also tend to dress a little bit better. Miss Carter and her colleagues here look pretty good to me. They don't look beat and malnourished. However, are women and men like Miss Carter better dressed because Master loves them a little bit more, want them to be real fly? Are they better dressed because there's a specific property that's gonna be standing in that elegant dining room as he entertains his really important friends? And so since they are just as much of his property as the dining room table is, then when they look real good, somebody else look real good too, don't they? Now, this is the uncomfortable part. I told you there were 136 enslaved people there. What I left out is that 11% of that number is mulatto. Half black and half white. Now, I can't tell you where the mulatto slaves came from that part of the record book here. What I have happened to learn in 28 years of life, though, is that mulatto people don't fall out of the sky. So we can imagine where they came from, but I don't like assumptions. As a historian, I operate in fact, and I love a good fact, but I couldn't get a fact here, so I had to get creative. I learned how to explore my options. So let's explore. Let's put ourselves into the shoes of every person involved in this situation, because there's a common misconception that slavery only affected black people. Oh no. Slavery played a very interesting psychological game on the minds of white people too. Because honestly, how must Master's wife have felt about all this? How must it feel to have to come to work every day, or come into your house rather, and look into the face of your husband's indiscretion every single day? Okay, so now let's look at this from the perspective of the slave. How must it feel to come to work every day and have to bear the brunt of someone's anger and aggression and resentment for a situation that you did not ask for, nor can you control? You see, well, the white women in that period didn't have too many options either. You see, it was like they could go to their husbands and say, you better leave her alone, that's not your place just yet. So when she had some very understandable anger and aggression and resentment, who's she gonna take it out on when she can't go to her husband? Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper. What happens when that slave pop up pregnant by Master? Now, how does Master's wife feel? Because think about it. I know it got to hurt. How must it feel to come into your house every single day and look into the face of your husband's indiscretion every single day? Well, the white women had 2 options here. The children are labeled free property no matter how you spend it. And you can do with your free property what you wish to do with your free property. That means you can rent it if you don't want to sell it. Because people that couldn't afford to buy a slave could rent a slave. Did you know that? Now, in that instance, though, if you don't want to look at them every day, you can sell them. You see, down in Louisiana, they had one of the best markets for pretty light-skinned babies. They'll give you a fair asking price for a high yellow child in varying degrees and shades of mulatto and quadroon and octoroon. But then think about how this slave must feel. Think about what it would do to you to have to carry a child for 9 months and then come to work every single day and look into the face of the man you had your child by and know that to that man, your babies, your children, your flesh, your blood, let's call it what it is. His babies, his children, his flesh, his blood. But to that man, my babies, they just free property. They could be bought and sold at will. In actuality, my babies, they're not even renting my babies. Imagine what that would do to you over time. But think about how it must feel to be the child. Think about how it must feel to grow up on a plantation with your daddy. I'm talking about your 146 years. And that ain't even counting the Portuguese and the Spanish who was here and did it first.
Let's give Ms. Jones another round of applause. So how is the journey so far? Our next presenter, Angela Sutton, is a postdoctoral fellow at Vanderbilt, where she works with the Mellon Partners for Humanities Education. She is on the board of the Friends of Fort Negley and is the director of the Fort Negley Descendants Project, which is an oral history archive and collects the voices and stories of Black Nashvillians who descended from the builders and defenders of Fort Negley. Dr. Sutton's presentation is entitled Fort Negley in Atlantic Context, the UNESCO Route. Dr. Sutton is going to continue on with our journey from enslavement to liberation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Hi. Good morning. I would really like to say thank you so much for allowing me to come and share my research with you. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Vanderbilt University, a historian. I worked in the Maritime Museum before moving to Nashville, and then I came here to do research on the Atlantic slave trade. And my work with Fort Negley allows me to really merge my love of public history with my research focus. So I want to tell you today about quite possibly one of the most unique and amazing historical sites that I've ever had the privilege of setting foot on. Yeah, all right, all right. Sorry, it's always the tech. All right. All right, here we go. So, as many of you are aware, in 2017, Fort Negley Park took center stage in the city's battle over gentrification when part of this public land was sold by a former mayor, who we're not naming, to developers at far below market value. This alarmed a wide range of people, right? Obviously, from activists to politicians, scholars, teachers, concerned citizens, most of the people in this room. I prepared the form to nominate Fort Negley as a site of memory on the UNESCO slave route. This form was submitted by the Friends of Fort Negley as well as the Nashville NAACP. And in 2019, we finally learned that Fort Negley was one of just 4 sites in the United States to earn this designation. It means that the United Nations recognizes the vital importance that Fort Negley has towards a global shared understanding of slavery and its modern legacies. So I'm going to speak a little bit more about what that means. Before I do that, I wanted to show you this map of the Atlantic slave trade. And some of you have been to some of my other talks. I put this one up almost every time I speak. And I do so because I think it illustrates really well just the sheer volume and also the geographical scope of the Atlantic slave trade. I think often in the U.S. we become very U.S. focused and U.S. centric, and and that is important because we have so much digging to do in our own nation. But this map shows us that we are not the only nation with this problem, right? This is a global issue. Every other nation in the Americas has been touched by the stain of slavery in some way, and they're all dealing with these same issues just like we are. So I just want you to take a moment to look at this map and kind of absorb the sheer magnitude of what the Atlantic system of the slave trade looked like. All right, so I'd like you to focus on how entwined the world became through the slave trade to show that the U.S. is not unique. Every nation that had enslavement is now struggling with those legacies, so that means that they all face anti-Black bias, they all face mass injustice, economic and health disparities, fewer opportunities for mobility. So it makes sense that UNESCO tackles this on a global level with something like the slave route. Every nation which touched the slave trade was tainted by it. So I'm going to take you through a brief history of the site of Fort Negley specifically, and then we'll kind of broaden it out and talk about what the slave trade is and why Fort Negley was such an excellent candidate for it. So many of the speakers you'll hear today, as well as Bridget Jones, who you've just heard, can better tell you what slavery looked like in the U.S., and particularly in Nashville and the surrounding areas. So I want to give you the rundown of Fort Negley specifically and how it fits into a larger Atlantic picture. So during the Civil War, the Union military came down here and raided all the local plantations for labor to build the fort. They eventually collected 2,700 people, possibly a little more, and between 600 and 800 of them died during the construction from disease. While this occurred, they were also joined by free blacks from all across the region and runaways looking to get behind Union lines and evade slave catchers. Frances Batson was formerly enslaved. She was one of the people who spoke to the Federal Writers Project when they asked her about this raiding, and she said, quote, "The Union Army's constant raiding and impressment frightened the young black children so much they ran away when they saw the blue man coming." The blue man, of course, being the Union uniform. Dr. Morton, who's the chief Union engineer of Fort Negley, said that the laborers laid out on the works at night under armed guard without blankets and eating only army rations, which contributed to the extremely high death toll during the construction of this fort. And in the top corner there, you have what we think is the only surviving image of the contraband camp at Fort Negley. So Fort Negley was one in 3 such camps in Nashville, and the reason the word contraband is used is because runaways were considered property, right? Because we had chattel slavery here in America, so enslaved people were considered objects and not people. Because of that, they were considered contraband because they snuck themselves, they stole themselves across Union lines. So we know that approximately 20,000 male contrabands were inducted in the Union Army as the U.S. colored troops, and many of these were from Fort Negley. These included James Harding Sr., who was enslaved at the Belmead Plantation. He ran away to help the Union War effort when he thought that he could have that chance. And he has a very robust descendant population still living here in Nashville. We also have the USCT themselves came then to Fort Negley. Many of them were formerly laborers there, and they fought. So Fort Negley was defended by 8 regiments of the USCT. We had 6 infantry, 1 heavy artillery, 1 light artillery. Now that people are doing research, we know some of their names, like Private Peter Bailey, whose descendant, Mr. Gary Burke, who is sitting up here, is a living history interpreter and narrates the National Sites Walking Tour, which you should have in your bag. Please take a look. It was the Fort Negley Descendants Project team that helped to create the Fort Negley Walking Tour. So the majority of soldiers in the colored regiments were fugitive slaves who fought for a host of complicated reasons, among them personal freedom and the opportunity to live in a nation without slavery. That was from Dr. Levitt's book. In December 17, 1864, the Nashville True Union newspaper wrote, "The hills of Nashville will forever attest to how desperately the despised slave will fight when he strikes for freedom." One former black soldier remarked, "I I fought to free my mammy and her children all through Nashville and Franklin and Columbia, Tennessee, and all down through Alabama and Georgia. I'm fighting to get free. So this becomes really important later as Fort Negley becomes a symbol of resistance to enslavement. That's a really huge part of understanding, having this global understanding of slavery and its long-lasting impacts. So then after the Civil War, we know that the KKK began using Fort Negley, which sat in the middle of a black neighborhood and overlooked all of Nashville as its headquarters. It was an important symbolic victory for bitter white Southerners that the racist terrorist organization occupied the Union Fort. If you go to the Tennessean, Betsy Phillips, one of our local writers, journalists, wrote about Leander Wood. He was a veteran of the USCT. He was at the Battle of Nashville, and he lived right at the bottom of that hill where Fort Negley is sitting. And he had enough of the KKK marching through his neighborhood and going up to the top of that hill. And so he practiced drilling. He got his veteran friends from the Civil War. They practiced drilling. They bought a big keg of gunpowder. And, well, the newspaper said that after that, they didn't have the same problems with the KKK anymore. And that article is still in the Tennessean. You should look it up because there's some great research in there. So we know that St. Cloud Hill, upon which Fort Negley sits, was home to the earliest emancipated black populations of Nashville. Dr. Wyatt at MTSU is doing excavations there now with his class and finding their artifacts. And that's down where the hill meets Bass Street over by the city cemetery. And then after the war, this population goes on to help with the establishment of Fisk University and many of Nashville's black institutions in that neighborhood and in North Nashville, which continue to flourish today. So there's this direct connection between this site, between this sacred site, and so many of the things that black Nashville holds sacred today. So, the slave route. I'm going to shift focus really quickly to UNESCO. So, sites of memory are historic sites, museums, and memory initiatives that activate the power of places of memory to shape the public with a deeper understanding of the past and inspire action and shape a just future. UNESCO's project seeks to break the silence around the historical process of the slave trade and foster dialogue, peace, and reconciliation processes. Since its launch in 1994 in Ouida and Benin, this initiative has been supporting research in disregarded areas. I'm going to say that again because that's important. Disregarded areas. Preserving both written and intangible pieces of heritage, creating appropriate methods of teaching that history. And I mean appropriate methods, not what we have now, appropriate methods. And identifying, preserving, and promoting sites of memory that relate to the slave trade. So the slave route also wants to highlight the global transformations and cultural interactions that have resulted from the history and contribute to a culture of peace by promoting reflection on cultural pluralism and intercultural dialogue. So that's a lot to unpack there. But I'm going to try. So Fort Negley and its legacy then isn't just about slavery, right? It's about resistance to that institution and resilience, and most importantly, recovery from that institution as well. Something that Fort Negley's story does really well, and why I believe that it hasn't been given the attention it deserves until recently, is that it changes the entire national and therefore international narrative about enslavement. Fort Negley's robust history isn't only about enslavement, but about those who resisted their enslavement, the people who ran away from plantations to take up arms against their oppressors, and the resilience of those who persisted during the long and difficult period of Reconstruction. There's a long line of descendants from this space who continue to have robust interactions with it. They tell the story of the comprehensive African American experience, one that contains pain, yes, but also so much more. Survival and triumph and community and spirituality and visions of a better future for their children. These are the themes that come up over and over again in the Fort Negley Descendants Project, the people who know that their ancestors belong to this space. These are the messages they say over and over again. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We want better for our children than we had, just like our ancestors. They wanted better for us, and they got that. They fought for it, and they won that. And this changes the whole narrative, right? Because for so many Americans, enslavement and the history of our nation's descendants of Africa is cordoned off or relegated to maybe a week in the curriculum, or if we're lucky, to Black History Month. And this is evidence of America's denial of the past, the very thing that UNESCO found all slaveholding societies have in common: discarded areas. So then, it's no surprise to me that Fort Negley was endangered in 2017. And it's no coincidence that it took Nashville until 2007 to build the Fort Negley Visitor Center. 2007. Like, Fort Negley was built in the 1860s. But Fort Negley speaks to the shared history that some people would rather bury. Nashville isn't alone, though, and America isn't alone either. Remember that big map I showed of the slave trade? So the whole world is struggling with this issue. America wasn't a nation that had slavery. It was a nation whose very backbone was enslavement. The enslaved built this nation. There is not an institution in America that hasn't been touched by slavery. I dare you to find one, because you won't. It is our identity. It shapes who we, everybody in this room, everybody in this nation, are together. So how we handle that information is going to shape how we move forward, as a nation. I'll repeat that. How we handle that information will shape how we move forward together as a nation. So Fort Negley is a place where the descendants of enslavers and the descendants of the enslaved can face this history separately as well as together. That's why the UN has deemed it intrinsic to the world's understanding of itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that research, Dr. Sutton. Let's give her another round of applause. Also, there's a junk drive here. I'm not sure who, oops, wrong mic. I'm not sure who left this junk drive. We're going to take a slight turn on this journey. Dr. Alicia Mosley, the interim Vice President of Academic Affairs, was scheduled to speak after our break this morning, but she does have prior commitments, and so we're going to allow her to come now and give her remarks. Dr. Mosley.
Wow. Great number of people, great crowd as always. Again, good morning, everyone. I bring you greetings from Dr. Glenda Glover, who couldn't be here, but she sends her best wishes from the conference and considers this event to be part of what I think characterizes a university. Connecting students, faculty, alum, and our external family members promote the conversation around important issues of history, equity, and inclusion. And so it's a pleasure for me to be able to give greetings at this 39th annual Nashville conference. And as always, I'm happy to be among you who are all so passionate about the history and culture in this region. And the presentations that we've already heard today have really moved us and connected us in a way that really sends a resounding reason why we need to continue to always have this conference and really have it here, Ms. Nguyen. As a career person in the area of business, I've waited so long since an undergraduate for all the predictions that have been associated with 2020. So the year is finally here, and one of the more important predictions that was noted 30 years ago was a demographic shift in the U.S. population. And so we really have seen some of that. But with all the forecasts associated with 2020, I still can't believe that how much has changed and how much has stayed the same. Conversations we've heard in the past have tremendous applicability right now. And so I would all take this opportunity of personal privilege to say we must remain engaged in the discussion and act in real time. We have to use our civic duty and vote in this and every election. It must be something to this voting right. And as everyone has said, it must be something to this voting right, since there are so many suppressing our rights. I don't always know what will happen when I step to the desk and vote. I lived in Mississippi for over 15 years and have been here 7 years, but I can't imagine what those who fought for this right experienced when they stepped up to the desk. Even death was not out of the range to prevent people to vote. And the courage of those people propels me to the desk. Since I have been here, I have watched firsthand people being told that they are not on the rolls or that they are suddenly at the wrong precinct when they have been voting in one particular precinct for over 20 years. So please, we must remain engaged and encourage everyone we know and don't know to jump right into this process. As Dr. Malanga Karenga said about 25 years ago, you should not participate in your own oppression. And the words today that we have, as I think about it, of course I have my vote pen, so that provokes conversation and say, are you registered? I got my tablet. We can get you registered in 10 minutes. But I've been really thinking about Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, mountaintop speech, and the part that I am so connected to is his quote about, now let me say as I move to my conclusion that we've got to give ourselves to this struggle until the end. Nothing would be more tragic than to stop at this point in Memphis. We've got to see it through. And when we have our march, you need to be there. If it means leaving work, if it means leaving school, be there. Be concerned about your brother. You may not be on strike, but either we go up together or we go down together. Let us develop a kind of dangerous unselfishness. And this year for 2020, we need to have that same dangerous unselfishness and act on our right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley. And so the journey continues. And oh, what a journey our next presenter has had. She was born on an Army base in Vietnam. She attended Vassar College in Connecticut, and she currently lives in Franklin, Tennessee. Tina Jones became interested in the untold stories of African Americans while living in Franklin. She serves on the board of the African American Heritage Society of Williamson County and directs the Slaves to Soldiers program there. Her presentation this morning is titled Fighting to Be Free, Researching Williamson County's U.S. Colored Troop Veterans. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. Do you have announcements? Good morning. Give me just a second while I get my technology going here. Let's see. Is it up? Okay, great. That's always the hardest part of speaking. It is truly a privilege to be here with you today. I have sat where you have sat for several years, so I'm a little intimidated, but I'm so glad to be here, not just to be speaking in front of you all today, but to be sharing the stories of these men who were enslaved in Williamson County and became sailors and soldiers in the United States Navy and the United States Army during the Civil War. I first I'm going too fast, yes. I first became interested in African American history. It'll be 20 years ago this summer in Williamson County when I moved to Franklin, and I took on a program at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Franklin between parishioners and a group of senior citizens who live in two traditionally African American neighborhoods that sit on either side of our church around where our sanctuary is. And we bring a group of about 50 seniors and a group of 30 parishioners together once a month for a meal and bingo or craft or some kind of activity. And so I've been coordinating that. And I know for many of you, I don't get together with some of my best friends once a month for a meal to sit down. We're all so busy. And so after about 5 years of doing that with these seniors, we developed some real connections, and I started to hear different stories from them than was what was being presented. Bridget talked a lot about Franklin and about Carnton and the history 15 years ago that all that anybody talked about was, you know, the Battle of Franklin and Todd Carter and the Carnton House and Carter House. And I wasn't hearing their stories. And so we took our project in a little bit of a different direction, and we started digging a little deeper. We've written cookbooks, we've written books of advice, we've written books of their own personal history, and I started helping them with their family genealogy. And those of you out there who are genealogists, I know there's a lot of you, you know that you can't be good at genealogy. You can't be good at researching somebody's history without understanding the time and the place where they lived. So I had to learn a lot about Williamson County's history, and I had to learn a lot about what was happening to African Americans in Williamson County. And one of the things that I learned was that when the Civil War started, more than half of Williamson County's residents were enslaved. There were more than 12,000 people living in bondage in Williamson County. And I knew by then, I learned more about the Civil War, I'd learned more about the Battle of Nashville, and I knew that there had to be men who served in the United States Colored Troops. And we've already heard a lot about the U.S. Colored Troops, but just for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar, so the United States Colored Troops were segregated regiments of the regular Army. Gary Burke is here. Where did Gary go? Would you stand up for just a second, Gary? I hate to put you on the spot. So this is my friend Gary Burke. Like Angela said, Gary is a living historian, and you can see from Gary's uniform, these were the same uniforms that every man in the United States Army wore, the blue uniforms. So that's what the United States Colored Soldiers would have worn. That's what this gentleman's wearing. The only difference, one of the differences, is that black men could only serve as privates, corporals, and sergeants. Above that, they had white officers. And so I started asking about where Williamson County's United States Colored Troop soldiers were, and previous historians had found that there were only 8 men from Williamson County out of, remember, there were 12,000 enslaved people who had served in the federal forces. They said that there were 5 men who served in the Navy and 3 who'd served in the United States Army's Colored Troops. So I didn't think that could be accurate, and I started looking, and so I'm up to over 300 now. 13 men who served in the Navy and 292 men who served in the U.S. Colored Troops. So where did I find all this? Well, it was kind of hiding in plain sight, and I don't mean to disparage previous researchers. I was very lucky in that I started looking at a time when records were being digitized, they were coming online, and they were being indexed. So the place where I really just started finding them was on Ancestry. Ancestry is about half of the United States Colored Troop records online and indexed, so you can put in a name or you can put in a location or a date, and they'll come up. Family Search and Fold 3 also have them. So if you're looking, that's a good place to look. And I hope this is not in poor taste, but I'm going to be giving a workshop for the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society in a couple weeks. If you're interested in learning more about the process that I go through, feel free to come. It's free to members, so you might as well just go ahead and buy a membership. And it's going to be at the Fort Negley Visitor Center, so you can come visit Fort Negley while you're there. So the way that I was finding them was that these are some pictures of what are called compiled military records for soldiers, for U.S. Colored Troop soldiers. And you can see on the left, this is Private Charles Claiborne's service record. You can see I've highlighted that he was from Williamson County. It says he was born in Williamson County. I'd say 99% of the men that I have on my list were born there. There's a few that I can say for sure lived there, like after the Civil War. He was just 18 years old when he enlisted in April of 1864, and I don't know if you can read it, but he was killed at the Battle of Nashville in December of 1864. And one of the reasons I say that it is truly one of my life's great privilege in finding these men and telling their stories is because without finding Charles in these military records, I'm sure that his name only appears in writing in somebody's probate records. He's listed as Charles on someone's chattel property list. There's no other listing of Charles Claiborne, and we didn't know about him before. And so I feel like we're pulling his story out and bringing him back to life. Andrew Ewing, whose card here is in the middle, he was the Sergeant Major of the 12th United States Colored Infantry. He was the highest ranking African-American soldier in the 12th Regiment. A regiment fully staffed would be 1,000 men, 10 companies of 100 men. He was a little bit older. He was 30 when he enlisted. And then you can see here on the right highlighted, he wasn't just born in Williamson County, but he spent time in service. He was part of Hood's Retreat when U.S. Colored Troops pushed the Confederate Army of Tennessee out south of Tennessee, and he was sick in a hospital in Franklin. And until I started digging into these records, people in Williamson County just had no idea that black soldiers had any role to play in Williamson County's Civil War history. So it has provided a whole new layer of context, and I feel as though we've really moved the needle on what Franklin understands about its Civil War history. Because as Bridget had said, I mean, for decades, 150 years, Franklin's Civil War narrative has been dominated by our Confederate story. It's been our Civil War monument. It's been the freemen of Tennessee who went to fight. It's been our Confederate cemetery. But now we're able to specifically point to the men from Williamson County who served in the United States Colored Troops, many of whom who came back, lived, and died, and are buried with U.S. Colored Troop headstones right here in Franklin. The U.S. Colored Troops was actively recruiting men in Middle Tennessee and in West Tennessee and down near Chattanooga. This is a flyer on the left-hand side that was used in Middle Tennessee. You can see it doesn't have a lot of writing on it because most African-American men at that time were not literate, but it's very graphic. And on the right, this is a listing in the newspaper from November of 1863 showing that they were actually opening recruiting stations. They were actively going out and recruiting African-American men into the United States Colored Troops. And it was highly effective. Of 200,000 black men who served in the United States Army during the Civil War, you can see this is broken out by state. Tennessee had the third highest numbers. Only Kentucky and Louisiana sent more black men to serve in the United States Army during the Civil War. And I feel like this story, I mean, people like Gary Burke have been telling this story for years and years and years, but I feel like we, particularly in Franklin, this story has been purposefully, systematically suppressed and left out of the stories that we tell. So not only has just finding their individual stories been interesting and useful, but I've been able to analyze them because I have enough numbers now to sort of look at them in the aggregate. And you can see that the majority of them served in the 12th and the 13th United States Colored Infantry. This is a photograph of the 12th guarding a bridge down over the Elk River. We also had large numbers serving in the 17th United States Colored Infantry. Gary's great-great-grandfather served in the 17th. And this is a picture that I recently found of their regimental band. And we think that this picture was probably taken in Nashville. So you are one of the first groups to get to see this photograph in a public setting, so that's pretty exciting. And then you'll see another large group, I sort of have clumped them all together, served in artillery units, and Angela mentioned this. This is the 2nd Light Artillery that served, and they were at Fort Negley. They were stationed off of Grady White Pike, and they were also part of the battery at Johnsonville, just west of Nashville on the Tennessee River. So another interesting piece of looking at these records is I was able to look at where they enlisted. Remember, 99% of these men were born in Williamson County. The majority of them were between about 18 and 22 years old. So it wasn't surprising to me to see that they were enlisting right in this area. They were enlisting in Franklin and Nashville and Murfreesboro. But when I looked at the whole map, you can also see that there were men enlisting in New York City, Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Chicago, and I can only assume that those men had managed to find their own freedom, that they had escaped. And now, when the country was asking them to, they enlisted, and they served, and primarily those men were sent to the Eastern Theater, and they ended up serving in Virginia and North South Carolina, even down into Florida. And other men you can see were enlisting in Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas, and those men probably also in their young lives had been sold or taken to those places to farm cotton or other cash crops. And in some cases, we've been able to document that that is what happened to them. This is another just sort of interesting slide showing their enlistment dates. Those very early ones, that starts January 1st, 1863. The very earliest enlistments are the men in the Navy. As soon as the Emancipation Proclamation said that black men could serve in the Army and the Navy, we have men from Williamson County enlisting as early as January 2nd. So we think they were probably already on gunboats in the Cumberland and the Mississippi River, and they were working, but once they could transition into actual soldiers rather than laborers, they take advantage of that opportunity. That big spike, Angela will find interesting, those are a huge group of men enlisting all on the same day at Fort Negley. They're largely men out of the 12th United States Colored Infantry that we know were all men who went right from Fort Negley into the United States Colored Troops. These records are also a great source of research of information for those of you who are genealogists or just historians, maybe running a museum or a site. I know for genealogists, we're always looking for something called brick wall busters, you know, that you hit that brick wall, you don't know where to go. I can't even tell you how much the pension applications for these men provides. This on the right-hand side is a picture of a man named Freeman Crothers or Freeman Thomas's pension card. He served in the 12th United States Colored Infantry. He was the first man that I serendipitously decided I was going to try to piece his story together. I could not have picked a better man to try to tell his story. I feel like it was fate that I did because his story has been an abundance of riches. His application, for example, explains why he changed his name from Freeman Crothers, his slaveholder's name, to Freeman Thomas. I know that's often an issue for those of you who are doing genealogy. These pensions will explain that because somebody has to say, why did you enlist under one name and now you're asking for a pension? How do we know you're the same person? They often also, especially if they're asking for a pension for minor children, will give specific ages and birth dates. And I mean, how wonderful is it to find that in a record? This is Ellen German applying for pension. Her husband, Miles German, was killed at the Battle of Nashville fighting in the 13th United States Colored Infantry. These pension applications also they don't just provide the voices of the soldiers, but like I said, with Ellen's application, they provide the voices of women and children, and sometimes even enslavers, which was interesting to me to find. This is a piece from Daphne Perkins' application. She was a mother of Abraham McGavick, and she described in her pension how she was brought to Williamson County when she was 2 years old, and gives kind of a detail of who her different enslavers were and where she lived. She also goes on to say this. She says, Abraham McGavick was my youngest child. I never had any children born since him. I had 13 children. 3 died and 8 were sold south long before the war and are gone from me entirely. When I go speak in Williamson County, I can't do what Bridget does. I mean, I'm just not made that way. And so it's so wonderful for me when I speak to groups to be able to try to explain to them. It's one thing to say children were sold from their mothers, but to be able to give Daphne her voice and let her say, you know, 8 of my children were sold and I don't know where they went is so different. It has so much more impact. Right? I mean, to give her that opportunity to tell her story is incredible. And her son, Abraham, so 8 of her children were sold south. 1 of her children was Abraham, who went on to be a soldier. He was sold away from her when she was 4 and raised by another woman named Julia. And this is Julia's statement in the pension. She says, it was some 16 years before the war. My master brought a little 4-year-old boy named Abraham. He then became Abraham McGavick. The little boy wearing shirts, like he wasn't even wearing pants yet, was given me to raise. I took care of him until he was about 19 years old when he entered the army. He wrote me letters, and he was raised by me as if my son. So again, like, we get to hear what Julia's experience was, having to raise a child. She was only 13 years old when she was given Abraham to raise. And this is a statement, like I said, of a woman who was enslaving Andrew Ewing. He was the first sergeant of the 12th United States Colored Infantry. She says, Andrew Ewing belonged to the estate of my father, Alexander Ewing. Andrew Ewing was my property or under my control until he enlisted in the Federal Army. He was very smart and competent for a Negro. So she seems nice, right? She was actually like an ardent Confederate. She is believed to have hung the first Confederate flag in Franklin when Tennessee seceded, and she was the first cousin of Adelicia Ackland of Belmont Mansion, who was the widow of Isaac Franklin, the notorious slave trader. So that just gives you a sense of where her state of mind was. We also have statements sometimes from the children themselves. This is Jarvis Scruggs. His father, Ned Scruggs, served in the 13th United States Colored Infantry. I was sent by my mother while my father was in the Army at Nashville to take him 6 chickens, and I took them to him. I was shocked at that. I was like, really? He would have been about 13 years old, and she sent him up, probably Nashville with chickens. And he did it. I was so glad that Bridget mentioned the Fisk slave narratives because, like I said, Freeman Thomas has just been the gift that keeps on giving. Many of those slave narratives were anonymous. They don't name who the person being interviewed was. That was the case with Freeman Thomas's interview. He was one of the people interviewed, but because of the details contained in his pension application and just doing good old-fashioned genealogical research, I have 100% identified him as being one of those interviewed. I would literally like put one of my children up. Like, I'm that sure that this is Freeman Thomas's voice. And so I feel so lucky that using that pension application, we're able to give Freeman his voice back and identify it, and also to give Franklin Freeman's voice, to say this is one of your own, this man, this is his story, and he was one of ours. He said this, he said, I ran off from my master when I was about 15 years old and joined the Army. I was in the field shucking corn on the Murfreesboro Pike. This is Highway 96 in Franklin. All at once, I heard a band playing. Everybody in the field broke and ran. Not a man was left on the place. We all went and joined the Army. The captain sent us back to work on a fort they were building. This would have been Fort Granger in Franklin. When we finished this, I was sent along with the others to work on Fort Negley in Nashville. Then he said this, I didn't work there, Fort Negley, no more than about 3 weeks before they started to recruiting colored soldiers. I was sent to Tullahoma for training. This was the biggest thing that ever happened in my life. I felt like a man with a uniform on and a gun in my hand. I know, it's amazing. And then he said this. Did you need me? Oh. He said, I went to see my mistress on my furlough, and she was glad to see me. She said, you remember when you were sick and I had to bring you to the house to nurse you? And I told her, yes, I remember. And she said, and now you are fighting me. And I said, no, I ain't fighting you. I'm fighting to get free. So I can't top that. That's I can't top Freeman's words. So I'm going to stop with that. But I just wanted to say, so I write a blog where I'm telling their stories. I'm working on a project to sell brick pavers in Franklin because I feel like all 300 of these men deserve a place to have their names memorialized in downtown Franklin. You can feel free to follow me. I use the hashtag Slaves to Soldiers a lot. We have moved the needle on telling the story significantly. Sometimes I forget that. In Franklin, we've installed a historic marker. The Fuller Story Project has been very active in doing that in Franklin. We've installed a marker on the square in Franklin telling the story of the United States Colored Troops, talking about Freeman Thomas, and we're currently raising money to install a statue of a United States Colored Troop soldier. So we've made a lot of progress. But I would encourage all of you who are from Tennessee, particularly the Middle Tennessee area, to look into these sources of records because not only do they tie into Fort Negley, they tie into a lot of the sites around here, and I appreciate the opportunity to tell their stories. So thank you.
So how's the journey so far? Every good journey deserves a break. It's break time. We will resume at 10:55. Per my orders, for those of you who have presented, if you'll just hang back a little bit, I think they want to do a photo op with maybe Dr. Mosley, Ms. Wynn, and the planning committee. We're just going to take a few pictures. Everyone else will see you at 10:55. We have a few presentations before lunch. And in keeping with the journey, I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Sharon Presley, who is a retired Air Force officer and a former professor of aerospace studies at Tennessee State University. She currently serves as a leadership trainer and motivational speaker. Our morning presentations have taken us from slavery to Civil War to Fort Negley, and Ms. Presley is going to take us to the Tuskegee Institute. Her presentation is titled Wing Victory, TSU's Tuskegee Airmen. Please welcome Lieutenant Colonel Sharon Presley.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's so good to be back at Tennessee State University. First of all, Dr. Wynn, ma'am, thank you so much for the invitation to come here once again. I was here last year. And if we could please remember for just a moment, Lieutenant William McBriar. Today would be his 159th birthday. So yes, we had Lieutenant William McBriar, Tennessee State University's Medal of Honor recipient, Buffalo soldier, and one of the first African-American commissionees. We spoke about him last year. That discussion ended up leading to the question, who among Tennessee State University were Tuskegee Airmen? This presentation would not be possible without the efforts of Ms. Sharon Hull-Smith from Special Collections. Ma'am, if you would please stand. Mr. Fletcher Moon of the library. If you please stand as well. Mr. Carl Thomas, the son of Tuskegee Airman Mr. Wade Thomas Sr., who is unable to join us this morning. Mr. Brandon Van Leer, the artist who rendered the portrait of Lieutenant Joseph C. White for the 2018 Veterans Day ceremony. Sir, if you would please stand. And we are especially honored to have with us today Dr. Katie Kennard White, the widow of Lieutenant Joseph C. White. And Lieutenant Joseph C. White, nephew, Mr. Thomas Kennard. When we start talking about our Tuskegee Airmen, TSU's got a very interesting background. How many people think of Tennessee State University as one of the foremost aviation colleges after World War II? We've got a couple here. Yes. TSU was on the cutting edge of bringing African American pilots into the mainstream. Slides are going to fight with me today. There we go. Tuskegee Airmen, first formed in 1941. If you go back in history, in World War I, African Americans were actually barred from serving as military pilots. Eugene Bullard actually went and fought with the Lafayette Escadrille, first African American pilot who was of American heritage, but he was not allowed to fight for his own country. He actually had to fight with the French. His success helped pave the way for the Tuskegee Airmen. And in 1941, the Army Air Corps brought on board, this is shortly before the establishment of the Army Air Forces, established the first program to bring African American pilots into the ranks. It was established at Tuskegee and consisted of pilots, navigators, mechanics, support staff. You'll see in a lot of the press reports it's very difficult to nail down the actual number of Tuskegee Airmen. Documents from that day are tough to understand. Some of them say 966 pilots, 16,000 support personnel. Some say 972 pilots and 16,000 support personnel. Estimates at this time of all of the Tuskegee Airmen, only 14 survive. We're losing our World War II generation very rapidly. Primarily, there were two units that they consisted of, the 332nd Fighter Group and the 477th Bombardment Group. For further information on the Tuskegee Airmen and their heritage, including several personal interviews with Tuskegee Airmen, please see Silver Wings Civil Rights. Tennessee State University's Tuskegee Airmen basically fall into three categories. Those who actually came here to teach at the university, those who became students at Tennessee State University, and those who continued to serve in the ranks as the Air Force ROTC Detachment 790 commanders. Among these, Dr. Rutherford Atkins, you'll see him here. I will confess an unforgivable ignorance. I just learned his name yesterday. This is a story that is still in progress, a story that's still developing. We do not know the name of all of TSU's Tuskegee Airmen. But he was a professor of physics at Tennessee State University after the war and continued to teach students. Mr. Cecil Ryan is probably the best known. Mr. Cecil Ryan is probably the best known of the instructors at Tennessee State University. This is him right here. He actually started out teaching airmen at Tuskegee in Alabama. He was a thorough instructor, very thorough. We'll talk a little more about that. You'll see some things that are very traditional among the military. One is that many veterans don't talk about their past experiences, and that goes generation to generation to generation of veteran. You'll also find out certain things among aviation instructors are consistent, so you'll see that here in just a couple slides. He was the original head of the Department of Aviation and Industrial Technology here at Tennessee State University. He was a mentor to many of his students, teaching them everything from radar to navigation to flight instruction. Several of his students went on to become Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps pilots. Many others became staunch pilots among the civil aviation in the nation, including Pan American, Eastern, and American Airlines. I want you to remember this because in the later slide, we're going to talk the legacy of TSU's Tuskegee Airmen. He wasn't just an instructor of aviation, he was also an instructor of life. Says you can live a long time in this business if you stay within the rules. He was also known for admonishing his students that you can't spend your way out of debt. This was actually him supporting an aviation club. And like I said, like every single aviation instructor I've ever met, kill yourself, but don't scratch the bird. Like I said, his success as an instructor came in his students. When you see how far his students were able to take their lives and what they did with their lives, his legacy lives on, and I'll show you that coming up here in a few. Like I said, after we discovered Lieutenant William McBriar, Tennessee State University's Medal of Honor recipient, the question rapidly became, who among TSU's alumni were Tuskegee Airmen? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to demonstrate something here. For everyone here who served in the military, would you please stand? Whether you're active, guard, or reserve, please stand. These ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. These ladies and gentlemen may or may not have told you they served in the military. And so a lot of times, we don't know who among our neighbors are veterans. And because most of them are so quiet about it, and won't talk about it, or can't discuss it, we may not know. One of our Thailand veterans was Lieutenant Joseph C. White, class of 1954. Dr. Katie White, who is with us here today, like I said, Bam, thank you so much. She has donated boxes of memorabilia to Tennessee State University's special collection. That is where these photos come from her personal collection. Thank you again, Matt, for this. Now, Lieutenant Joseph C. White is a very interesting young man. He was born in 1921 in Town Creek, Alabama, but he lost his parents at a really young age. So he was raised by an aunt in Chattanooga. At that young age, his character was already showing in the most diligent way possible. You'll notice here, he is actually an Eagle Scout in this photo, looking after younger Boy Scouts. He was at the 1937 Jamboree in Washington, D.C., where he met Eleanor Roosevelt. It says that she patted him on the shoulder, and he didn't wash the shirt for a week. That encounter with Eleanor Roosevelt would come back later on as a strong memory. He also was a huge aviation fan, getting into model aircraft. You can tell he won multiple times. Now, what is tough to see here, you can't see on the screen, is the description. A lot of these competitions were segregated. He had to compete in his own category. The language used was not kind. This young man didn't know the word quit, had no idea what that meant. He knew he loved aviation, he knew he loved model aircraft, he knew he wanted to serve. And that's what he did, consistently. Included in the memorabilia was a letter in Chattanooga that actually stated that he was welcome to participate in the aviation competition. The fact that that letter had to be sent speaks of the time and the challenges that he faced. But like I said, he didn't know the meaning of the word quit. His Aunt Maggie made sure that he never knew that meaning. He enlisted in 1943 with the Tuskegee Airmen and trained with the 332nd Fighter Group. He flew 9 months in the hostile European theater. P-47s, P-51s among the Red Tails. He was based out of Romitelli Airfield in Italy, flying in North Africa, Italy, France, and Germany. Now here's a bit of a question. I love this photo. Actually, this whole set of photos. This is actually taken at Tuskegee Airfield, Morton Field down in Tuskegee, Alabama. What do you notice about what they were wearing? Fleece-lined jackets, thick pants, heavy boots, helmets, leather helmets. Why would anybody dress like this in the middle of Alabama? And the reason is right here. This is an open-air cockpit that they are training in. They're up at altitude. It is freezing cold up there. If you've ever been in a slipstream, standing in the door, getting ready to jump, you pull a parachute, that is ice cold. But they did it. They did it in spite of all the challenges. When asked in an interview what he was proudest of, he said not losing a single Allied bomber to enemy fighters on his watch. Here's the other thing. His life didn't stop with being a Tuskegee Airman. He's credited with 1.5 kills in aerial combat. What a lot of us struggle with today, even myself as a military member, we don't understand what was, termed back in 2007, the Arsenal of Victory. Actually, sorry, 2005, the Arsenal of Victory. One of the aerial engagements that the Tuskegee Airmen took part in had 300 German fighters. Imagine a sky full of nothing but aircraft attempting to shoot down other aircraft. Bullets flying, multiple gunners, the chaos, shrapnel. He went into that head first. When asked what he was there to do, he said, "I came to fight." He was darn good at it. You'll see him from his initial flight training, being an observer. This is him here. The fighter pilots of World War II, and Lieutenant Joseph C. White as an instructor pilot. But after the war, it didn't stop. Like I said, this young man did not know the word quit. 1954, a Bachelor of Science from Tennessee A&I State in physics. Double master's degree, science and education, and the master's in administration. Walton College, University of Tennessee, a PhD in physics from the University of Minnesota. He was a flight radar and electronics instructor in the military at Keesler Air Force Base. He went on to teach at Howard High School in Chattanooga, and then he established the electronics program at Pearl High School. He actually did appear at some speaking engagements discussing his role in the Tuskegee Airmen and his accomplishments in World War II. How many ladies and gentlemen did he pass the legacy of being a Tuskegee Airman? The love for science, technology, engineering, math, aviation. The chance to stand up and demonstrate courage and bravery, to take on a tough mission and succeed in spite of adversity. This proclamation was actually made in Franklin back in 2005, honoring his accomplishments. In 1963, he met Dr. Katie White. back then a student. They had 3 sons. Actually, correct me if I'm wrong on that. 3. Three children, sorry. 3 children. She was a professor of chemistry here at Tennessee State University. Biology, I apologize. Professor of biology here at Tennessee State University, and correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am, she was one of your instructors? She's one of Ms. Sharon Hill-Smith's instructors as well. Unfortunately, at the age of 86, we lost Lieutenant Joseph C. White in 2007. He was inducted into the Tennessee Hall of Fame later in 2007 for his accomplishments in World War II as one of the Tuskegee Airmen. Mr. Wade Thomas Sr., another of TSU's Tuskegee Airmen. Less is known about his record. He was actually part of the 477th, which is a bomber group. In talking with Mr. Carl Thomas, his comment on it, we were trying to figure out if he was a navigator or a gunner. Mr. Thomas's response was, most likely a navigator. He couldn't hit anything. This is one of the few known photos of Mr. Wade Thomas Sr. as a Tuskegee Airman. After the war, he graduated from A&I, 1949, with a business degree, graduated with distinction, and talk about a distinguished post-World War II career. You notice this is the Black Pages of 1991. This is actually Mr. Wade Thomas Sr., featured prominently on the cover. Just like Lieutenant Joseph C. White, he went on to continue his education with postgraduate degrees at Indiana Central University and the University of Tennessee. He served in the civilian capacity with the state of Tennessee, with the U.S. Postal Service, and with the General Services Administration, which he retired from as the building manager of Region 4 in Atlanta. He didn't stop. He served for 30 years as a real estate broker. His list of civic organizations that he supported and worked with, I'll give you just a brief summary. National Association of Public Accountants, North Carolina Housing Commission, Asheville Board of Adjustments, Asheville Civil Service Board, the Daniel Boone Boy Scout Council, the Vice President of Asheville's Board of Realtors, Asheville's Buncombe Human Relations Council. He was the treasurer of the YMI Cultural Center. He was also a member of the Optimist Club. He was married to Mary Catherine Scuggs, had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He died February 6 in 2000. This was the Veterans Day celebration at which several of his descendants were able to attend back in 2018. He's actually buried in the cemetery here in Nashville. One of the difficulties of studying Tennessee State University's Tuskegee Airmen is sometimes the documentation and the items that reveal themselves are very small. This is TSU's unknown Tuskegee Airman. I don't know his name. This is the only thing that gives me any idea. This is from Ageni, 1942, the school's yearbook from 1942. This tells me he has to be a Tuskegee Airman because a closer view of his hat shows the airman's prop and wings. If anybody has any idea who this gentleman is, we've been trying to find his name for 2 years, and I have failed so far. But this is a work in progress, so if anybody knows who this man is, please let me know. Among the Tuskegee Airmen that we knew most about was the actual original commanders of Air Force ROTC Detachment 790. Air Force ROTC Detachment 790 of the United States Air Force came into existence in 1947 And the first graduating class of airmen from Tennessee State University graduated in 1951. The original commander was Major Dudley M. Watson. You can see him, he's actually in the top row of his class. This is him right here. Major Watson took 790 out of its starting chocks. Unfortunately, he suffered an early death in 1958. Suspicion was due to cancer. But he laid the foundation at Tennessee State University for its future generation of airmen. Colonel Howard L. Baugh. I love this story. Of course, I love all the stories of the Tuskegee Airmen. He was born in January of 1920 in Petersburg, Virginia, and was a graduate of Virginia State College. He joined the Tuskegee Airmen in 1942. Now, quick fact about the first three commanders of Detachment 790, all three of them received the Distinguished Flying Cross in combat. Lieutenant Baugh was stationed with 99th Fighter Squadron in Sicily. He had 135 combat missions, flying the P-40. How do I do it, Tom? Let's wrap up. Okay. Give me 2 minutes. Okay, quick variant of this. Basically, he flew 15 different types of aircraft, 6,000 hours. He taught as an instructor of aerospace studies at Detachment 790. Does anybody recognize this picture here? That is a very young Captain Sharon Presley meeting her hero back at Squadron Officer School in 2000. This is Colonel Howard Baugh. Yes, I had the opportunity to meet the gentleman whose footsteps I would be so honored to follow in all these years later. Lieutenant Baugh went on. He worked after he retired. He served a full career in the Air Force. He went on to work at Eastman Kodak in New York. He lost his wife of 54 years, Constance Laney, but before he did, he also has 3 sons that survived him. A sculpture was unveiled at the Black History Museum and Cultural Center of Virginia, and he's buried in Arlington National Cemetery. The last instructor that we'll talk about from Tennessee State University, the last of the Tuskegee Airmen among 790's instructors, was Colonel Hannibal Killer Cox, one of 2 African-American pilots to serve in 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. According to his daughter, Michelle Cox Stinson, he was one man who wanted to change the world. He had a master's degree, PhD, was an educator and an intellectual, went on to serve with Eastern Airlines. He took Detachment 790 through one of the roughest periods in TSU's history. Shortly after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in an act of arson, the detachment was burned to the ground. An interview with a gentleman who actually was at Tennessee State University at the time said it was an internal act of arson. Reportedly, General Chappie James showed up on campus and said, "What are you doing to keep ROTC here?" Colonel Cox's response was to rebuild the detachment and require that his lieutenants receive their commissions at the graduation ceremony, standing tall and with pride. He's buried at Arlington National Cemetery. The legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen lives on today. General Fig Newton, the Air Force's first 4-star general, was one of Colonel Hannibal Cox's students. Captain Carl Gamble, who landed a flaming aircraft in Vietnam and went on to land a hijacked aircraft in Cuba back in 1984. And one of our most current, Cadet Jerry Kivett, who will graduate this spring, the latest in the long blue line that is Tennessee State University's legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen. In 2013, the Tuskegee Airmen received the Congressional Gold Medal. And although the audio may not work on this, this is Colonel Charles McGee, one of the Tuskegee Airmen. That morning, he received a honorary promotion to Brigadier General. The slide is actually still showing. I don't know why. This one. Okay. That didn't happen. There we go. Now over 100 years old, this is General Charles McGee, Tuskegee Airman, at the State of the Union Address. Standing next to him. Standing next to him is his grandson, who aspires to be an Air Force Airman. He's currently 13 years old and in Phoenix, Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today in the State of Tennessee State University's Tuskegee Airmen.
Let's give Ms. Presley another round of applause. If only there were more time, but the journey continues. Our next presenter has taken me on many journeys. And today I'm going to be a willing participant. Again, Linda T. Wynn is the Assistant Director for State Programs with the Tennessee Historical Commission and a member of the faculty at Fisk University where she teaches history and public administration. She is a co-founder of this conference, an active scholar, and contributor to numerous, and I do mean numerous, publications. She has served as a consultant to the Fisk Museum, the State Museum, and other organizations. She is a member of the Nashville City Cemetery Board, the Nashville Public Television Advisory Board, and was reappointed to the Metropolitan Historical Commission of Nashville. She's also a member of Spruce Street Baptist Church and a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Her presentation today will be Women's Suffrage, a twofold struggle as women and African American women. Please welcome Linda T. Wynn.
Pam just told me I had 15 minutes. I told someone I have 14 pages, and I thought I had 20 minutes. This is a very complicated story to tell when you begin to look at women's suffrage and African American women in that movement. In the summer of 1920, the state of Tennessee captured the attention of the nation as those who favored women gaining the right to vote of the franchise, who were the suffragists, and those women gaining the right, who did not want to gain the right to vote, the anti-suffragists, descended upon the volunteer state to campaign for their respective positions in the Tennessee General Assembly. On May the 21st, 1919, the amendment cleared the U.S. House of Representatives. The Senate vote came up on June the 4th, 1919, and it was 56-25. As you might imagine, most southern states voting no. 35 of the 36 states needed had ratified the amendment. 8 states had rejected the amendment. 3 refused to act, which left undecided states of North Carolina and Tennessee to make the 19th Amendment a reality for those women across the country. Most southern states rejected women's suffrage amendment because of racialist calculation that the entitlement would also include African American women. Anti-suffragists used this same reasoning in Tennessee. Notwithstanding, suffragists considered Tennessee as their last and best chance for ratification of the presidential election of 1920. If Tennessee ratified the amendment, 27 million women across the country would be eligible to vote in the next presidential election, giving women political power over 130 years after the founding of America. Governor H. Roberts called a special session of the General Assembly on August the 9th, 1920, to consider the issue of women and the vote. Pro-suffragists and anti-suffrage supporters from across the state and the country descended upon Nashville, determined to influence and bring the state legislature to their respective positions. However, the road to the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution began long before the ratification. Women's rights emerged as an issue during the American Revolution. Abigail Adams warned her husband John not to adopt the repressive code of common law, or the ladies were bound to ferment a rebellion. Still, women lost general legal ground with the formation of the United States after the American Revolution. While women had voted under some conditions in the colonies, they lost their right in all state constitutions between 1777 and 1807. Suffragists in the 19th century maintained that they were not asking for a new right, but for the restitution of their foremothers that their foremothers possessed. It was the culmination of almost a century of activism, agitation, and protest for women's suffrage. The right to vote had been an issue at variance with America's founding principles. Since the beginning, when those who penned the lofty document, "We the People," signed on September the 7th, 1887, it basically excluded African Americans apart from the references to enslavement and women. By the 1830s and 40s, the climate began to change when several bold, outspoken women championed diverse social reforms. Activists began to question women's subservience to men and called for a rallying around the abolitionist movement as a way of calling attention to all human rights. From the beginning of African American women faced a double-edged sword. Or as W.B. Du Bois wrote, "One ever feels his two-ness. An American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciling strivings, two warring ideas in one dark body whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder." For African American women, the movement for the right to vote manifested the two-ness as they faced a twofold struggle as women and as African Americans. It's impossible to commemorate the centennial of women's suffrage without looking at the sesquicentennial of the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which gave African American men the vote and its impact on both pro and anti-suffragists. Tennessee abolitionists and women's suffragists first surfaced in the aftermath of the Civil War. The contribution of African American suffragists occurred not only within the women's movement, but also within the larger Black voting rights movement. From the beginning, both men and women were involved in almost a century-long struggle to gain the right of the franchise. Suffragists Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony appropriated control of the 19th century narrative. However, several historians, including Elsa Barkley Brown, Laurie Ginsburg, and Rosalind Turgot Penn, among others, exposed Stanton, the suffragist principal philosopher, as a classic liberal racist who embraced fairness in the abstract while publicly enunciating bigoted views of African American men, whom she characterized as Sambos and incipient rapists after the Civil War. The suffrage took on similar flavor, acquiescing to white supremacy and selling out the interests of African American women when it became expedient to do so. Notwithstanding the racist murmurings of many white suffragists, African American women, both from the state of Tennessee and Nashville, were involved in the struggle for women's rights to access the ballot box. For African American women, women's suffrage was a twofold struggle that intersected both race and gender. Although black women's contribution to the suffrage movement campaign was rarely written about until about 1998, African American women had a more consistent attitude toward the vote than whites. As Rosalind Penn explains in her study, African American Women in the Struggle for the Vote, African Americans maintained a political philosophy of universal suffrage, while whites, including women, advocated a limited, educated suffrage after the Civil War. Black men as a group, especially those in leadership positions, supported and worked for the enfranchisement of women. W.B. Du Bois, who took Frederick Douglass's place as the leading feminist male of his time, recognized the potential advantage of women attaining the right with his succinct observation: votes for women means votes for black women. This view reflected the consensus. Political empowerment of the race required the participation of black women. As Mary Church Terrell, a native Tennessean, stated in her article, The Justice of Women's Suffrage, that appeared in the September 1912 issue of The Crisis, for an intelligent colored man to oppose suffrage is the most preposterous and ridiculous thing in the world. During the 19th century, African Americans and white women organized around the abolitionist movement of the 1830s. Culturally, African Americans in general and African American women faced a public constructed through the forces that were reshaping American society during the 19th century. African Americans confronted notions of racial inferiority that had been developing since the earliest encounters between Americans and Europeans. Excuse me. Bostonian Mariah Stewart, a pioneer African-American activist and the first woman to speak before a mixed-gendered audience, spoke out both for the rights of African Americans and women. By addressing the mixed-gendered audience, Stewart shattered the long-standing prescriptions against women speaking about political issues. It is of no small matter that Mariah Stewart was an African American. However, what drew her to the podium were concerns both about womanhood and blackness. For Stewart, the future of African Americans was all bound up with the woman question. She became an early symbol of female activism and reform that became important in the decades after the Civil War. Later, in 1848, in New York's small town of Seneca Falls, at the first Women's Rights Convention in the United States, Elizabeth Cady Stanton waged her discontent by rewording the most famous phrasing in the American political creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. She further proposed a resolution that called for women's right of the franchise. One of the few men and the only African American to attend the Seneca Falls Convention was the Universalist suffragist Frederick Douglass, who supported Stanton and her call giving women the right to vote. He argued that the ballot was the guarantor of all rights, the key to liberty, and women must be bold. Formerly enslaved, Douglas, a woman rights man, knew firsthand the injuries superimposed upon the enslaved and understood that women, like African Americans enslaved and free, were all constrained by American law and custom. Publisher of the North Star, he penned an editorial articulating his unequivocal backing of women's rights. And I quote, "In respect to political rights, we hold women to be justly entitled to all we claim for men. If government only is just which governs by the free consent of the governed, there can be no reason in the world for denying to women the exercise of the elective franchise or a hand in making and administering laws of the land." 3 years after the Seneca Falls Convention, on May 29, 1851, Sojourner Truth, an abolitionist and formerly enslaved black woman, addressed the Women's Rights Convention in Akron, Ohio, despite some white women's effort to prevent her from doing so. Her address has been referred to as "Ain't I a Woman?" However, this speech was written and published in 1863. That's 12 years after Truth gave the "Ain't I a Woman" speech. It was written by a white abolitionist named Frances Gage. She not only changed all of Truth's words, but represented her speaking in a stereotypical Southern black slave accent, rather than Truth's distinctive Upper North Low Dutch accent. The most authentic version of Sojourner Truth's "Ain't I a Woman" speech was published in 1851 by Truth's good friend, the Reverend Robinson, in the Anti-Slavery Bugle, and it was titled "On Women's Rights." Credit for the discovery of Truth's 1851 speech must be given to historian Nell Irvin Painter, a former professor at Princeton University and author of Sojourner Truth, A Life, a Symbol. From the 1850s to 1858, other African American women attended women's rights conventions, including Margaret Forden, Harriet Forden, Purvis, and Sarah Parker Redmond, who attended the 1858 National Women's Rights Convention. The American Civil War disrupted the women's suffrage movement, although many continued to champion the abolition of enslavement. Once the war ended and as talk of the 14th and 15th Amendments increased, many women hoped to gain the same right of citizenship that would be granted to those previously enslaved. Prior to the proposed amendments, only white men had the right of the franchise. The 14th Amendment, Section 2, added the first mention of gender into the Constitution, which stipulated that all male citizens over 21 years of age should have access to the ballot. Simply stated, the 14th Amendment defined citizens and voters exclusively as males. The committee that drafted the amendment had inserted the word male, betrayed the feelings of women who had worked for the abolition of enslaved and African American civil rights. Elizabeth Cady Stanton cautioned, if male was inserted into the amendment, it would take almost a century to nullify. Later, Congress passed the 15th Amendment, which granted African American men the right to vote and caused consternation among women who had sought the right of the franchise. After the 15th Amendment's ratification granting voting rights to African American men, Susan B. Anthony declared, "I will cut off this right arm of mine before I will ask for the ballot for the Negro and not for the woman." Women's fear came to the realization when the 14th and 15th Amendment combined to grant the vote to African American men, but not women. Many white suffragists, especially in southern states, stressed voting rights for white women to the exclusion of African American women. African American suffragists like Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin, Ida B. Wells Barnett, Mary Burnett Talbot, Mary Church Terrell, and others insisted on full inclusion in the suffrage movement. As America approached the progressive era beginning in 1890, the woman's question again entered the political arena, where it remained until 1920. Before Americans entered the second decade of the 20th century, those women advocating suffrage turned their attention to Washington and the inauguration of President Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president and the first Southerner to be elected president since the 1848 election of Zachary Taylor. According to Wilson's biographer, Pulitzer Prize-winning author A. Scott Berg, the president personally favored women's suffrage, but early in his administration held that it was a state matter, states' rights, partly because of strong opposition in the South. This increasingly prominent role took women in an effort in factories and at home convinced Wilson and many others to further the women's suffrage. On March the 13th, the day before Wilson's inauguration, thousands of women marched along Pennsylvania Avenue, the same route that the inaugural parade would take the next day. In a procession by the National American Women's Association, designated to illustrate women's exclusion from the democratic process, the procession was carefully choreographed by Alice Paul and Lucy Burns, the newly appointed chairs of the NAWSA's Congressional Committee. The committee was tasked with winning passage of the Susan B. Anthony Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The amendment reads, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex." In the 35 years since the amendment was first opposed, it had only come up for a vote in Congress once and failed. The same year that the white women marched along Pennsylvania Avenue, believing that the ability to vote was key to alleviating every aspect of women's inequality, they were joined by African American women. If white women needed the vote to acquire advantages and protections for their rights, noted Adele Hunt Morgan, the leading suffragist of the Tuskegee Women's Club, then black women needed the vote even more. Earlier in the year, Delta Sigma Theta sorority was founded on January 13th by 22 women at Howard University in Washington, D.C. The National Suffrage Association was reluctant to advocate the right to vote for African American women because of racialist attitudes held by some in their ranks. The power of racist congressmen, because of political expediency. Consequently, they were reluctant to include African American women's concerns on their organizational agendas or in their public demonstrations. Before the parade commenced, NAWSA told Ida B. Wells Barnett that she and her Alpha Club would not be allowed to march with whites from Illinois in a prescribed Alpha order. They would have to march at the rear of the line. An irate Wells Barnett refused and left the arena. Instead, she waited along the side of Pennsylvania Avenue until the Illinois group marched by. Then she and two white allies stepped in front of the Illinois delegation and continued in possession. Mary Church Terrell, Delta's first honorary member and author of the official Delta Oath, urged the fledgling sorority to participate in the march. Although there was concern about African American women being potential targets of violence. Advocating for women's suffrage was a part of the organization's program, and participation in the march represented an opportunity to put their program into action. Less than 2 months after the founding of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the founders participated in their first public act, advocating for women to gain the right of the franchise. Later that same year, the women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated established a second chapter at the University of Chicago, where they played an active role in voting and political concerns of the day. Unlike women activists who often created their own institutions separate from men, African American women often organized within already existing institutions: churches, political organizations, mutual aid societies, and schools. Former Tennesseans Ida B. Wells Barnett and Mary Church Terrell worked assiduously with other African American women, helping to establish such organizations as the National Association of Colored Women, considered by some to be the first civil rights organization. NACW grew to 28 federations with more than 1,000 clubs and membership of 50,000. The first convention of the National Association of Colored Women held its first convention in Nashville in 1897. Nettie Langston Napier, wife of attorney J.C. Napier, served as treasurer of the national organization. Other women included Minnie Lou Crossway, registrar at Fisk University, Doctors Josie E. Wells and Mattie E. Coleman, practicing physicians, Juno Frankie Pierce, and Mrs. Hattie S. Smith Jackson, wife of the Reverend G.L. Jackson. They were founders of women's clubs, and Mrs. Georgia Bradford Boyd, wife of Henry Allen Boyd. These women not only enjoyed local support, but also through such organizations as the NACW and with African American communities in Tuskegee, Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. Perhaps the most notable of these women in the struggle for suffrage is J. Frankie Pierce and Dr. Mattie Coleman. Pierce, a founder of the Nashville Federation of Colored Women's Clubs, also founded and served as president of the Negro Women's Reconstruction League. Like Coleman, she served on the management committee of the Blue Triangle branch of the YWCA. By the end of the second decade of the 20th century, Nashville, the state of Tennessee, and women's suffrage captured center stage. Almost from the beginning, women's suffrage was entangled with the issue of race, and this entanglement played out in Nashville. Despite racism being front and center in Nashville, among both suffragists and anti-suffragists, African American women were among those who favored women having the right to vote. In 1919, as people came to Tennessee for or against becoming the 36th state to ratify the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote, the suffrage movement was mostly segregated, especially in the Jim Crow South. Nevertheless, a meeting of white women in Nashville, which Coleman was asked to attend, she offered support for the reforms of white activists and reminded them that 12,000 Negro women of the state are organized and seeking a vocational school for their girls. Pierce and Coleman made the girls' vocational school a part of the program of the Tennessee women's suffrage movement. After the women's clubs worked with white clubs on several social issues, these connections promoted an association in Nashville on women's suffrage. African American women participated in the movement. In May of 1920, Frankie Pierce was asked, "What will the Negro woman do with the vote?" the daughter of a free father and an enslaved mother, asked her audience, "We shall stand by white women. We're asking only one thing, a square deal. We want recognition in all forms of government. We want a state vocational school and a child welfare department of the state, and more room in state schools." The League adopted the school as a part of their legislative agenda and lobbied extensively for its passage and realization. Through their actions, African American women echoed Anna Julia Cooper's declaration, "When and where I enter, then and there the whole Negro race enters with me." After the resolution passed the Tennessee State Senate, both suffragists and anti-suffragists desperately lobbied to secure the vote in the House of Representatives. The amendment passed the Tennessee General Assembly on August the 18th, 1920. It was signed into law 2 days later by the United States Secretary of State, Bainbridge Colby, and he issued a proclamation that officially declared the ratification of the 19th Amendment and made it a part of the United States Constitution. Tennessee provided the 36th and final state needed to ratify the amendment that gave women the right to vote. As Frances Ellen Watkins, an abolitionist, suffragist, poet, teacher, public speaker, and writer, averred, "We are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul." To commemorate Tennessee's role in the ratification of the 19th Amendment, a statue was dedicated in Nashville Centennial Park in 2016. In November of 2019, the Metro Parks and Recreation Department opened the J. Frankie Pierce Park that is located within the state capitol, where Pierce forthrightly put forth a defense for racial and gender equality and told white women what African American women sought from the suffrage was a square deal. Later this year, the Votes for Women's Project will open as a permanent exhibit at the Nashville Public Library. There, visitors will encounter the stories of suffragists and anti-suffragists who converged here in 1920, trying to sway state lawmakers to either defeat or secure women's right to vote in this country. Thank you.
Okay, let's give all our presenters another round of applause, please. I got two quick announcements I want to make. I would encourage you to visit the library to check out some of our artwork. Our librarian, Glenda Alvin, has some of her quilts on display, and they are magnificent. I was trying to figure out a good way to convince her to give me one of them. But they are beautiful. And also, we have an exhibit by the artist Laurie Brown. He's an award-winning visual artist, and he's a Jamaica native. His artworks are magnificent as well. And thirdly, right here in this building, after you eat lunch, check out the artwork of Abraham Teklu. He's a visual artist, and his art is on display at the library down in the basement. So once you get a full belly and you want to walk it off a little bit, go downstairs and check it out. You will be pleased, I'm sure. Okay. Now I'm going to make an announcement that will probably make you the most favorite presenter today. It's time to eat. Lunch will be served from 12 to, and it says the next performance will begin at 1:30. So eat and try to be back in your seats by 1:25. Okay, thank you. Hang on, hold on there. Oh, I'm sorry. Is Miss Brenda Haywood here from the mayor's office? Okay, hold up on the lunch. We need to hear her.
First of all, I'm only going to take a second. Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Oh, yeah. I'm going to take a second because I know it's lunchtime and I'm fully aware of what that's indicative of. Yeah. So I need a timekeeper. So can anybody say 3 minutes or less? 3 minutes or less. Okay, I see you right there, Greg. 3 minutes. Are you a Delta? No, okay, 3 minutes or less. First of all, I want you to know that my name is Brenda Haywood and I am the deputy mayor. I want you to know that I just take this anniversary and this time of the year and every day of the year as being Black and Brown and Yellow History Day because we have so much rich history. I want to bring you greetings from the mayor's office. He told me to tell you that he really is regretful that he could not be here today. He has several other engagements, and oftentimes when there are events like this, I'm really glad that he has prior engagements because I get to come and stand before you. I want you to know that on yesterday, I was the African American history speaker, and it meant so much to and for me at Humboldt High School. The African American kids, they invited me to speak. And it was so meaningful. They showed videos, and all they wanted to talk about was the African American history right here in Nashville. And I just want to share a little story with you, and then I will be out of your way. Just a really brief story. I was born in 1951, and so in 1960, I saw Diane Nash, and I saw all the kids that acclimated from TSU and FIS and American Baptist and Vanderbilt. They all got together and they marched from FIS to the courthouse. And they asked then Mayor Ben West, do you think that the downtown institutions, stores, Walgreens and McClellan's and Kane Sloan's and Harvey's, they asked him, do you think that's right for us to go in there and spend our money, but we can't sit at the counters? And his answer was kind of unequivocal. You know, he told him, well, I have to, he said, no, he said unequivocally, it's not right. But then he told him he'd have to go down and talk to those proprietors and see what they thought about kids sitting and people of color sitting there at the counters. Now keep in mind, and I'm watching all this because I was born in 51, all of this happened in April 19th of 1960. And so I'm a little girl and I'm watching, and I asked my mom and daddy, this just doesn't make sense in my head. And I wanted to be one of those marchers. And they told me, my mom and dad said, girl, sit down. You're just too young to go down there and march. Well, subsequently, I went to Inglewood Elementary School as a 5th grader, and then as a 6th grader. Then I integrated Stratford High School because the kids told me that you all are ignorant and you're dumb and you can't learn. And the stereotypical jargon and the language that they said was, I could not embrace that. So I went home and I said, Daddy, my best friend Mary, which was Caucasian, her daddy told her that I couldn't go to Stratford. We've been best friends and I still just don't understand all this. He said, you can go anywhere you want to go. But to make a long story extremely short, I went to Stratford, and it was 4 of us that went that year. But Stratford started at 7. I got there at 5, and I rehearsed my dad to just go, go, go. And I was the first one to ever walk through the doors at Stratford High School as barely a 12-year-old. In 1963, it was 7th through 12th grade. Oh, that's sweet. That almost makes me cry. Thank you for that. But that was just my little contribution. And I told the kids yesterday, whatever pains you the most, that becomes your purpose. So you use your courage or whatever it is God's given you, your athletic ability or your whatever art, whatever gifts and talents you have, you use that outside of yourself to make this world a better place for everybody. Because if we do things introspectively, then we think we're living, but we're not living at all. But this is the way God works. And pardon me if you don't believe, I just want to say this. In 1960, Diane Nash, and I want to tell you something else, be a great role model because it's hard to become what you can't see. Diane Nash stood out in my mind because she was a young African-American female. I was a younger African-American female. That was James Lawson and all of those, but Diane Nash stood out in my mind. And I said, I can become that. I can be that person that can change the society in some way. So, Diane Nash marched from Fisk to the courthouse to ask Ben West the question that she asked him, and he gave that answer. Well, then, today, Mayor Cooper is our mayor, and he asked me, Brenda Haywood, to be the deputy mayor. So I want you to know that the pendulum has not swung as far as it can, and the dream has not come to fruition, but I think we are moving the needle. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to take a little over 3 minutes. Thank you. Have love.
Make a few remarks. The department chair of history at Tennessee State University, I saw him earlier, but I don't see him now. So I want to make sure that all of you are aware that on April the 8th and 9th on this campus, there is an African conference. It's a 2-day conference, very similar to this conference. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it on the TSU Exchange. I'm thinking that it's already there, but you're all welcome to attend that conference as well. If you have any inquiries, Dr. Lee Williams can answer those questions for you. Also, I feel a little sad today because Gloria McKissick is not here, and this is usually the time of day that she gives presentations or introduces our speakers. But I just wanted to acknowledge Gloria and hope that she feels better. Also, I want to acknowledge the matriarch of this conference, Mrs. Thompson. Could just stand. Okay, our next presenter is the curator at the Frisk Museum, Katie DeMay. Katie has been working on bringing the murals of North Nashville to the Frisk Center, and they are there, I'm thinking. She's also worked on We Shall Overcome, Civil Rights and the Nashville Press, 1957 to 1968. Can we give a warm, Mo Better welcome to Katie DeMay?
since we opened in the spring of 2001. During that time, I've had the good fortune to work on major exhibitions that have received national and international attention, clicking off the official New York Art World boxes of success. Yet a project that I consider to be among the most important and impactful so far focused on the selection of artists and issues present right here in Nashville. That exhibition is Murals of North Nashville Now, and it was on view at the Frist. I'm sorry to say it's closed, but it was on view from last August through early January of this year. And it sought to shine a light on a culturally rich, yet often underserved community through the presentation of 8 new site-specific murals made by young artists who lived, worked, or studied in North Nashville. Let's see. Oh, everybody else has been able to figure this out. How can I not? Okay, here we go. So the exhibition was in our always free Conte Community Arts Gallery, and it featured the work of the bright, ambitious, and committed artists you see on the screen now. From the front row, beginning on the left, is Xavier Payne, who goes by the name X Payne, Lysander Bryant, Brandon Donahue, Courtney Adair Johnson, and Marlos Avon. And then on the top row are Dojo and Sensei, two members of the North Art Collective that you'll hear more about soon. Elizabeth Israel Mrozik. Alicia Boat, sorry, thank you, yes, of course. Woke 3 and Omari Booker. Not pictured here are Keep 3, another member of North, and Nuveen Barwari. So, there they are too. Okay, so now it may be surprising to hear that the story of this exhibition actually began with this guy, Chicago-based visual artist Nick Cave. In addition to creating wearable sculptures out of a variety of repurposed everyday objects, Cave directs major multidisciplinary public performances utilizing dancers, musicians, spoken word artists, and many other creatives. And rather than bringing his own troupe from Chicago to the various cities that present one of his performances, he tasks the hosting institution with sourcing the talent. The whole point to him is to offer a stage, literally, to underrepresented local artists, and as he says, to introduce the community to itself and to form bridges. So as part of Cave's exhibition at the Frist from November of 2017 through June of 2018, we produced the massive performance Nick Cave Feat Nashville on April 5th at the Schermerhorn Symphony Center. Did anybody here by any chance get to see it? A couple of people? Great. So as the curator of the exhibition, this task of learning more about our community fell primarily to me. And looking for first a venue for the performance and then for the participants took me to several places that I had not been to before, including the Gentry Center at TSU, the Magruder Family Resource Center, Pearl Cone High School, and many others. Now, some of you may recognize the uniform of the marching band that you see in the balcony, and yes, it was the marching band from Pearl Cone. At first, Nick wanted a marching band. That was a really integral part of his vision, and at first we were disappointed that the Aristocrat of Bands was not available, but in the end, Pearl Cone was so much more the right fit for this project in terms of offering the students an opportunity to be a part of this first-rate creative endeavor, to get to work with an internationally acclaimed and successful artist, and to see that the arts can indeed be a viable career path. And especially when we learned how all too many of these students had been directly impacted by gun violence, which is something that's really important to Nick as an artist and as a human being. We wanted to bring them into this project. And in the end, we had well over 200 people participating in the performance. This isn't even everybody. And it was described in the media as art church. It really was spiritual for many of us who participated in it and got to see it. And actually, I just want to give a little plug. If you ever have a spare hour or so and want to watch the performance from beginning to end, it is posted on our Facebook page, and I do highly recommend it. So I also found myself in North Nashville during this time, and by this time I mean about 2016, 2017, doing research at the libraries at Fisk and TSU for another project, We Shall Overcome: Civil Rights in the Nashville Press, 1957 to 68. We Shall Overcome is in fact how I met Professor Wynn, who became our extraordinarily valuable academic advisor and who wrote an excellent essay for the accompanying publication that's still available for purchase in our gift shop. This was an exhibition that was on view in 2018 to mark the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Martin Luther King, Jr. And we have an installation shot of that here. And I'm very happy to say that starting April 6th, We Shall Overcome will be on view in the gallery at TSU running through early June. So this, of course, is to mark the anniversary, the 60th anniversary of the bombing of Luby's home and the resulting silent march. So if you didn't have a chance to see it at the Frist, I do hope you will check it out at TSU. I know that Courtney and the team are working on programming around that as well. So anyway, it was during one of these planning and research times. I think I was leaving Slim and Huskies and on my way to Fisk. Yeah, there was it was a good research. I was desperate for Slim and Huskies to be a part of the Nick Cave performance. That didn't happen, but happily they've been a part of the mural show. But anyway, I almost got into a car accident when I saw this mural on Buchanan. I pulled over to check it out, and I was really impressed. This wheat paste mural by a young artist named Lysander Bryant, as well, and this one, and others that I was beginning to notice around the neighborhood, were very different from the ones that you see in other parts of town, like the Gulch or 12 South or downtown. Some of those I feel like are just made for Instagram posts, and there's really no true content to it. And by the way, I did eventually meet Lysander Bryant, who made those first two murals, and he was a part of the Nick Cave exhibition. So now I had heard a story on WPLN in late 2015 about a TSU student who was organizing a wall fest in multiple areas of North Nashville. And with the assistance of a Metro Arts Commission Thrive grant, that student, who goes by the name Woke3, brought a selection of artists together to paint murals in an area under Jubilee Bridge and along Buchanan and Jefferson Streets. And when I went to check those out, now that my interest in the mural scene was piqued, I saw that, like Lysander's, the murals here had really powerful social commentary, and they reflected the unique character of the community in which they were placed. And I learned that part of the reason for this was because they were made by artists who actually had strong ties to the neighborhood, rather than by out-of-towners, which a lot of those murals downtown are made by, like the Angel Wings. But I didn't say that. All of this, of course, is in addition to the fact that they were really visually compelling. Eventually, I got to know Woke and additional artists in North, the collective that developed out of the 2015 Wall Fest. I also learned about other young figures who were using their public work to address important social issues and to expand viewers' understanding of the past and present moment. And it was clear that ultimately, these artists were interested in lifting up their community. And it was easy for me to see that something special was happening in North Nashville. The magic on Jefferson Street, as writer Erica Ciccarone called it in an April 2018 article in the Nashville Scene. And I really wanted to be able to showcase this at the Frist, the largest local arts institution. Not only to bring visibility to these talented young artists, but to shine a light on the issues they are thinking about and to offer an opportunity for viewers to gain more awareness of this important part of our city. Happily, because the Frist mandate is to inspire people to look at their world, including their neighbors, in new ways through art, our director, Susan Edwards, immediately agreed to the project. The planning for the resulting exhibition was a very collaborative process, more so than I really had in the past. And it included many conversations with the artists, both individually and collectively, and many, many conversations in the case of Woke 3, who you see, that picture I think is 5 years old, but a photo of him in front of his mural, Breeze. And the result, I believe, as a curator, was a stronger, less mediated, and more authentic final product. So I remain very grateful to all of the artists for the time and energy they spent thinking and working on this project. The artists and I talked about how in 2018, North Nashville had been featured twice on the cover of the Nashville Scene. Erica's article, as I mentioned, lauded the magic on Jefferson Street that was surrounding thriving cultural and artist-led initiatives, including the Student Ambassador Program at Fisk's Van Vechten Gallery, the Jefferson Street Art Crawl, and Thaxton Waters' Art History Class Lifestyle Lounge and Gallery. It also pointed to successful Black-owned businesses such as Woodcuts Gallery and Framing and Alicia's One Drop Ink Tattoo Parlor, which serve as vital artistic hubs in addition to their primary operation purpose. And restaurants like the Garden Brunch Cafe, the Southern Bee, and Slim and Huskies were offering both high-quality food and convenient jobs to the community. But the other scene article, written by Stephen Hale, reported on the area's history of displacement, from the construction of I-40 that of course destroyed hundreds of homes and businesses and left the neighborhood permanently bisected, to the present day as gentrification pushes out many longtime residents. That piece also discussed a national study whose authors found that 37208, of course a zip code that encompasses a large part of North Nashville, had the nation's highest percentage of incarcerated people born between 1980 and 1986. These two seemingly disparate writings reflected the multifaceted current position of North Nashville, one that simultaneously shows positive growth and persistent challenges. And we agreed that it was important to reflect this breadth, this multifaceted position in our exhibition. So throughout the planning process, I often heard the names Sam Dunson, Michael McBride, Old School, James Thrillkill, and Thaxton Waters, painters who have also made public murals in North Nashville. And I have a few examples here. Many of the artists in the current show credit these teachers and mentors as playing instrumental roles not only in passing on technical skills that are very much needed to make large-scale outdoor art, but for guidance in cultivating their social-based practice as a whole, and in teaching them about North Nashville history. So I want to give them a shout out here as well. And of course, it is worth noting that important murals have been made in North Nashville since the 1930s, when Aaron Douglas came to Fisk to create the murals that are in what we now call Cravath Hall. So once the conceptual framework for the exhibition was set, the next step was to work on the logistics. The question of how to bring public art into a museum or gallery is an important one. And for multiple reasons, we didn't want the artists to paint directly on the gallery's walls like they would normally do outdoors. So we designed and built standardized 8 by 12-foot panels that would fit into each bay of the gallery space. The Frisch did pay the artists an honorarium for both their materials and their time. We also delivered and picked up the panels, which was important because these are not easy pieces to move around. So with that figured out, the artists began to paint. Now, I just want to state that as a curator, it can be a little risky to organize an exhibition of all new work, since obviously you don't know what the final product will look like. Sometimes you'll have one new piece, maybe 2 new pieces, but an exhibition of all new work was something new for me. That said, I never doubted that my faith in these artists was well placed. And I was very happy, though, when all the works came in and I saw that they had all just given it their 100%. They had knocked it out of the ballpark, creating amazing and important pieces. It's interesting to note in terms of how the process worked with the artists. Some of the artists, I saw sketches. They kept me posted as they were creating their work, sending me photos, etc. But some, I had no idea what they were doing. The Norf guys, for example, when I went over to see them painting the works, this was the first time I saw them or had any sense of what they were creating, but obviously they came out great. I do think it's also worth noting, I especially like the picture on the left with Woke in the house that was built in the late 60s, early 70s, and you see one of those tall and skinnies right next door, encroaching in on the space. This is actually in Edge Hill, not North Nashville, but we're seeing this, of course, all over the city. When the murals were through, we hired Lysander, who is also a photographer, to take photos of the new work, which we always do for promotional and documentary purposes, as well as the artists. And you see me taking a picture of Lee, taking a picture of the Norf guys here. And I also just want to take a moment here to comment on the remarkable generosity and warmth between the artists that I saw. They consider each other peers and friends, and there isn't the competition that you, I think, would see with other artists working together like this. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the murals themselves and the artists that made them. So, as I mentioned, the Norf Art Collective is a team of multidisciplinary creatives that developed out of the 2015 Wall Fest. Membership is fluid, but artists Woke 3, Dojo, Sensei, and Keep 3, you see on the screen now, remain at its core. And as reflected in its name, Norf draws attention to and honors African American cultural specificities and history, and I have a few other examples of their work here, while also addressing current social issues. Although members of the collective are concerned about inequities of the past and about changes taking place in North Nashville now, a spirit of triumph pervades Norf projects. Their logo, for example, which you can see in the upper left corner of this mural, features an arrow always pointing up, straight ahead, north. I hope most of you have seen this mural on Clarksville Pike. It's entitled Family Matters, and you probably recognize some of the figures there. The local civil rights figures, Diane Nash, John Lewis, Curly Magruder, and Z. Alexander Luby, are here with 2 children that are meant to represent the next generation of activists. And in their newly creative works, Norf actually made 2 murals. Since they're a collective, 4 artists, that seemed fair enough. So there's a pair of Norf murals here. But in both of them, though the children that were in Family Matters are maturing. In this work, as you can see, the boy's eyeglasses now fit his head, and his pacifier has fallen out. He sees clearly and no longer needs a crutch, as he rises above negative situations, such as the game of the streets and unbridled development. A streetlight shines a light on these elements, as well as on 3 young black men positioned within a passion flower, which is Tennessee's state wildflower. They symbolize the many native North Nashvillians who are being pushed out by outsiders. And taken a step further, they can be read as a commentary on the intersectionality of African American lives with Native American experiences and the long history of displacement in the region. On the other mural, we have the girl from Family Matters, still wearing a yellow dress and flip-flops, but no longer holding her teddy bear. And she's making plans for a healthy future with education, you see Jubilee Hall, community, creativity, and clean natural resources as necessary building blocks. And she is writing the word North within the imagery as she strives toward a brighter world. X Payne is a graphic designer and illustrator whose billboard campaign, Don't Tread on Me, blanketed North Nashville in 2017. His new mural adaptation also speaks to gentrification. The mural features a young superhero falling from the sky from his comfort zone, losing his Mickey Mouse ears and golden crown, his identity, along the way. When he lands, he is given a spear from an imposing and strong Batman-like figure, representing the transfer of wisdom from elders to youth. With the spear and a shield and fire surrounding the nearby buildings, the boy fiercely attempts to slay the green dragon of green. You can't really see it in this picture, but there are stickers with a black Rosie the Riveter, designed by Payne, punctuating the scene, adding a sense of collective confidence and underscoring the historic nature of this fight for independence and ownership of land. Payne refers to his style, this use of bold colors and flat forms to depict African American figures as black pop, and he adopts this pictorial language as a way to write people that look like him into popular culture. In doing so, he demonstrates that black people often feel and act the same way as white people do, and he shows the significant influence that African Americans have had on popular culture, from Spike Lee movies to hip-hop music. And X Payne is doing quite well. Spike Lee has even acquired some of his works, so he's definitely a rising star. Photographer and graphic designer Lysander Bryant combines his own images and text to create overt propaganda meant to re-brainwash viewers with messages like "do not alter" and "love yourself, love your enemy," which elevate the value of Black lives. The title of his mural for our show, Opportunity Cost, corresponds to an economic term used when assessing the financial implications of decision-making. In this case, the price a person pays when making a career choice without being aware of all options. The resulting loss of potential gain is beyond monetary. Under the penetrating eyes of an African-American boy and the familiar Armed Services recruiting slogan, "We want you," Bryant lists an array of jobs for Black youth to consider beyond music, sports, and the military. The number listed in the sections with graceful helping hands, as he calls them, leads viewers to a supportive hotline, underscoring the value of community and offering guidance and building confidence. A 2014 graduate of Tennessee State University and longtime employee at Woodcuts Gallery and Framing, Omari Booker has witnessed the physical transformation of North Nashville during the city's current period of growth and development. His mural features the home of Eloise Freeman, I think I'm saying that right, Eloise Freeman, on the 2500 block of Jefferson Street, which has been in the family for nearly 100 years. Homeguard house wrap represents the many tall and skinny houses currently being constructed throughout the city, including North Nashville. And a small white dog wearing a pink sweater suggests the new residents moving into the neighborhood. This isn't the first time the Freeman home has been impacted by construction. In the late 1960s, the front yard was lost during the construction of Interstate 40. And despite appeals that went all the way to the Supreme Court, hundreds of other houses and businesses along Jefferson Street, of course, were completely destroyed. Does anybody recognize this home, actually? If next time you're driving down Jefferson Street right after the overpass, like, it's very distinctive, and it's right there, and you can see how the front yard is now gone. You can't really tell in this photo, but the house is actually outlined with red razor wire. And with that material, he's drawing attention to the discriminatory lending and investment policies known collectively as redlining that were adopted by banks and the Federal Housing Administration for decades. And the legacy of this unfair practice is still felt in the community, where home ownership by residents is far lower than the nation's average. Okay, Elishaba is a Memphis native who has been in Nashville for almost 15 years. She was a graduate of Memphis College of Art, but her practice shifted from graphic design to tattooing about 8 years ago, well, now 9, when she opened One Drop Ink Tattoo Parlor on Jefferson Street. Now in an expanded space, still on Jefferson, the parlor also serves as a central hub, a cultural hub in North Nashville, and its gallery space, along with woodcuts, is an anchor of the monthly Jefferson Street Art Crawl. And much of her work, Elishaba focuses on revealing the strength of African American women in particular, as they navigate an environment filled with systemic inequities, incomplete histories, and racially motivated violence. The central figure of our mural is a mother draped in royal purple, cradling the child she rears in one arm and the grown son or brother or husband she buries in the other. The halo trio becomes a contemporary Holy Family. The blue-robed figure on the right represents the establishment, who, as you can see, is whitewashing an American history book by removing and burning depictions of African American heroes and lynchings. A dog loyal to its red-robed master and the red state of Tennessee peeks out of its blindfold while holding scales, suggesting bias and inequity in the judicial system. The figure in white, meanwhile, watches this happening, but shrugs with a smirking, not my problem gesture. While green-clad ghouls, symbol of greed and of the money propping up institutional injustices, stare blankly at the visitors. Brandon Donahue, who has been a professor at TSU, he's now in Maryland, but I believe he still has an appointment in the Fine Arts Department, created this memorial wall, almost finished, similar in concept to Maya Lin's Vietnam Veterans Memorial, to commemorate local victims of homicide. Using information gathered by Tennessean reporter Natalie Alund, he carefully airbrushed the names of 96 murdered Nashvillians, 85% of whom died from gunshot wounds. You'll see the names. The deceased include 5 and 8-year-old sisters, Samai and Samarie Daniel, who were killed in their front yard in the Cumberland Gardens neighborhood. Others that were killed in East Nashville, Daniel Hambrook, who of course was killed by a police officer in North Nashville, and others. Some of these deaths were reported extensively, while others received very little attention. So I will just quickly, oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't have to, I'm sorry. Here are the names of the victims of gun violence. We also very much wanted to make sure that the youth of North Nashville were involved in this exhibition. So the good folks at Magruder Family Resource Center offered to facilitate the creation of a mural. So Courtney Adair Johnson, Marlos Avon, and Nuveen Barwari worked with youth from the Oasis Center and the Mayor's Paid Internship Program. Opportunity Now, here are the artists and some of the kids. And they created this really beautiful mural, where we were, where we are, and where we are going. So. We did also include, we had an interactive app in the gallery space that showed the murals that are in the neighborhood. You can see examples of that here. We installed the exhibition, obviously. You can see some installation shots here. We had a really fun opening with the artists and their families and friends. We produced a book co-published with Vanderbilt University Press that is also still available in our gift shop, and Dr. Lee Williams wrote an essay putting these murals in context. If I'm not speaking in the mic, maybe it doesn't count against my time. We had some great programs, great press, and I just want to say that we are now working on placing these murals on long-term loans to institutions in North Nashville, at the Robert Churchwell Elementary School, at the John Early Middle School, and at Pearl Cone. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And so the journey continues. Our next presenter is Brandon A. Owens, Sr. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Got to take my glasses off for this. Brandon is an assistant librarian for technical services and an adjunct lecturer in the School of Humanities and Behavioral Social Sciences at Fisk University. He is also a graduate research assistant for the Center of Historical Preservation and a PhD in public history candidate at Middle Tennessee State University. His presentation today is titled The Colored Carnegie Libraries of Nashville, Tennessee, 1906 to 1949. Please welcome Mr. Brandon A. Owens, Sr.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. First, let me start by saying thank you to Tennessee State University's College of Liberal Arts and the Metropolitan Historical Commission for inviting me to present some of my research during this conference. But I especially want to thank the co-chairs, Dr. Revis L. Mitchell Jr. and Professor Linda T. Wynn, who have both had an impact on my interest in history since I was a 17-year-old freshman at Fisk University. That's a long time. Thank you both for always encouraging me, guiding me, and believing in me. I would certainly be remiss if I did not take a moment to acknowledge my best friend and lovely wife, who is here today on Valentine's Day. Candace, would you please stand up and show everyone that beautiful smile of yours? I want to thank you for so much for your unconditional love, your support, care, and patience throughout my career and education. And finally, I would like to thank my Fisk and Middle Tennessee State family who are here in support of me today. My presentation is based in part on research I have done in preparation for my dissertation. Under the direction of Dr. Carol Van West, the Tennessee State historian and longtime professor of history at MTSU, my dissertation will argue that from its founding in 1866, Fisk University has made a conscious effort to collect, preserve, promote, and provide public access to African American history and culture. It will also show how Fisk University's library has evolved and served as a premier African American historical institution. with connections to every subfield of public history, including archival science, curation, digital humanities, documentary films, oral history, preservation, and programming. The title of my presentation today is The Colored Carnegie Library of Nashville, Tennessee, 1908 to 1949. So I will primarily focus on the history of public library access and service to African Americans in Nashville. But before we begin, I would like to provide a brief explanation for my use of the term colored in the title. Racial segregation in the United States, as a general term, refers to the practice of requiring separate housing, education, facilities, and services for people of color. Unfortunately, this included libraries. Just like water fountains and bathrooms, there were white-only libraries and colored-only libraries. It should also be noted that since the founding of Fisk University, its officials and faculty have made a conscious effort to give access to education regardless of race. Therefore, the Carnegie Library at Fisk University was also the first integrated library in the city of Nashville. However, most of my research regarding the city of Nashville's first African American libraries came from the Nashville American and the Nashville Tennessean newspapers. From as early as 1908 to as late as 1936, these newspapers published a small section called News of Interest to the Colored People. As inferred by the title, this section highlighted news and announcements relevant to Nashville's African American community. Although the libraries I will discuss were not formally called the Colored Carnegie Libraries, news articles related to their funding, construction, opening, and services often appeared in this segregated section of the paper. And despite its formal title as the Negro Public Library, and later the Negro branch of the Nashville Public Library, the first city-supported library for African Americans was repeatedly referred to as the Colored Carnegie Library. I pulled together several examples of this on one slide. As you can see, the newspaper cited as the Colored Carnegie Library in numerous real estate ads and newspaper articles. On this slide, you can see that even though the headline used the proper name of Negro Public Library, within the article, they still referred to it as the colored branch of the Carnegie Library. Now, I want to begin with the quote from the philanthropist who not only funded the construction of the two libraries I'll be discussing today, but also funded construction of over 3,000 public and academic libraries in the United States. Between 1893 and 1919, Andrew Carnegie once said, "A library outranks any other one thing a community can do to benefit its people." Fisk University was at the forefront of doing what it could to not only benefit its campus community, but Nashville's African American community as well. Shortly after the city of Nashville used its $100,000 donation from Andrew Carnegie to open its first free public library for whites on the corner of 8th Avenue and Union Street in 1904, Fisk University President James G. Merrill visited Carnegie in New York to negotiate a donation of $20,000 to Fisk for its own library building. By the 1904-1905 academic year, the small library, described as a pleasant and cozy apartment on the second floor of Livingstone Hall, was bursting at its seams with more than 7,000 books. Carnegie agreed to give the school $20,000 for a dedicated library building, but only if Fisk raised $20,000 as an endowment for its maintenance. From that time forward, Fisk Board of Trustees, alumni, and supporters set out to raise the $20,000 Carnegie required as a condition to receive the funds. On March 8, 1905, the Board of Trustees met and added the following statement and resolution to the minutes. Resolved, that the Board of Trustees set aside from the unappropriated funds of Fisk University the sum of $20,000 to be kept and invested as a separate endowment fund, the income of which shall be used solely for the upkeep and carrying on of the Carnegie Library to be erected from funds donated by Andrew Carnegie. That day, the board ensured that the first Carnegie Library built expressly for African Americans in the city of Nashville would open its doors on the campus of Fisk University. Rather than waiting for donor response to financial appeals, they agreed to set aside $20,000 out of the university's budget to meet Carnegie's maintenance requirements. Construction of the new Carnegie Library at Fisk University began towards the end of the 1907-1908 academic year. Here, as you can see, on Friday, May 22nd, 1908, Secretary of War and future President of the United States, William Howard Taft, delivered a speech and laid the cornerstone for the new Carnegie Library. A large crowd of students and visitors assembled on the northwest end of campus, the site of the new building, to hear Taft's speech titled Higher Education for Negro Leaders. Taft took this unique opportunity to tell the crowd of the good work done on this momentous day. First, he praised Fisk for its reputation of educational excellence. Then, he lauded the philanthropic efforts of Andrew Carnegie, who, quote, whose interest is not so confined to his large business interests that he cannot take time to think of his fellow men. Fisk hired African-American architect Moses McKissick of McKissick & McKissick Architects to design the building. The Carnegie Library at Fisk University was McKissick's first major work and one of the first major construction projects designed by African-American architects in America. McKissick & McKissick went on to design other academic buildings in Nashville, such as Washington Junior High School, Pearl High School, and Tennessee State University's Memorial Library. In June 1908, Fisk University librarian Catherine M. Marvin gave the following detailed statement to the Fisk Herald regarding the structure and arrangement of the future library. To enter the library, one passes through the vestibule, where all wraps and umbrellas will be left, and finds a spacious room 80 feet long and 40 feet wide. The desk for discharging and giving out books is directly in front of the entrance. Back of the desk is the stack room, and on either side are the tables and chairs for the readers. Two smaller rooms, each side of the vestibule, will be used for reference works or special collections, but will seem part of the large room as the separation will be simply an arch. Light will be secured from windows on the east and west and by a well in the center of the building, which will extend to the dome. It is hoped that north wall at the one end of the room will prove a satisfactory place for the large oil painting of the Jubilee Singers, while at the opposite side can be grouped copies of Henry O. Tanner's famous pictures. We also hope to give a prominent place to a collection of books by Negro authors and to display to good advantage some of the fine sets of books that have been donated to us. The basement will be used as a gymnasium for the girls, and the second floor around the well will be a number of rooms designed for club or similar uses, but for the present to be occupied by some of the lady teachers. McKissick & McKissick completed construction of the long-awaited and highly anticipated Carnegie Library in less than a year. The two-story red brick building with Georgia stone trimmings, a basement, a skylight, and a red tile roof was ready for the students by spring 1909. On the 25th of February 1909, in an hour's time, Fisk students carried in their arms most of the 8,000 books in the university library, from Livingstone Hall to its new location in the Carnegie Library. Within a few weeks of opening, the Nashville American hailed the library as one of the best patronized institutions of its kind in the city. The new library provided students with an abundance of materials for historical and contemporary research. It also gave them first-class facilities for both individual and group study. But the main benefit of the Carnegie Library extended well beyond the Fisk community. It was also open to the colored citizens of Nashville. Local African Americans had access to the same library services, materials, and facilities as the students. They could sit in the fine oak furniture found throughout the library, browse through and check out the books on the steel open stacks, or just walk around on the cork carpet floors that minimize sound. Portraits of the original Jubilee singers, recently appointed trustee board member Booker T. Washington, former President James G. Merrill, and longtime librarian of the university Helen C. Morgan adorn the walls for everyone to view. The library was open to the public daily from 8 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the evening, except during mealtime. On Sunday and Friday nights, it stayed open until 9 o'clock. The librarian insisted on open access to the stacks. According to one student, the free access had, quote, great educational value as it allowed the students to see for himself what material the library possessed on any subject. Now, 3 years later, Andrew Carnegie offered the city of Nashville another $50,000 to build 2 more libraries, under one condition this time. The city had to use $25,000 to build a branch for its white citizens and the other $25,000 to build a branch specifically for its colored citizens. Nashville's African American community desired its own city-funded public library so desperately that committees were formed and meetings were immediately held at Roger Williams University. Nashville's Negro Board of Trade was instrumental in the establishment of the second and final Carnegie Library, built expressly for African Americans in the city. Under the direction of the Negro Board of Trade, Nashville's African American community raised $1,000 to purchase the land. The city of Nashville contributed $5,000, and Andrew Carnegie provided the $25,000 for the construction of the Negro branch of the Carnegie Library. On Thursday, February 10, 1916, the Carnegie Public Library for Colored People opened on 12th Avenue and Hines Street in downtown Nashville. The opening ceremony had music furnished by singers from Fisk University, Roger Williams University, A&I, State Normal School, and Pearl High School. Short speeches were given by the Dr. G.H. Baskett from the Library Board, A.N. Johnson of the Negro Board of Trade, and Marion Mackenzie Hadley, who was Nashville's first African-American public librarian. Hadley's trainer, Mrs. Margaret Kercheval, who was head librarian at the main Carnegie Library, also spoke briefly. Marion M. Hadley graduated from none other than Fisk University in 1907. After graduation, she was a science instructor at Burrell Normal School in Florence, Alabama. She returned to Nashville shortly thereafter and received training at Nashville's first Carnegie Library on 8th Avenue and Union Street. Another Fisk graduate, Hattie L. Watkins, served as her assistant librarian. 10 days after opening the Negro branch of the Carnegie Library, Hadley posted the following notice to all in the Nashville Tennessean. She said, "The library is open every day from 2 to 9 p.m. It is closed all day Wednesday. Sunday, it is open from 2 to 8 p.m. Story hour every Saturday at 3 p.m. All interested in storytelling are invited to communicate with the librarian. Thursday, February 17th, the books began to circulate. Come and register so you may carry a book home to read. The library is open to everybody at all times. The Forward Quest girls and a committee of the Fisk alumni met at the library this week. Anything you do not understand, come and ask questions or call. During its 32-year existence, the Negro branch of the Carnegie Library served thousands of African American men, women, and children in Nashville. A few of its most noted registered patrons included Millie E. Gibson Hale, J. Frankie Pierce, Z. Alexander Luby, Reverend Preston Taylor, and Dr. Matthew Walker. The library was always available for meetings, activities, story hour, literacy, and public health programs. This 1916 article announced free public lectures on the prevention of typhoid fever and housing conditions with relation to health by Fisk sociology professor and executive secretary of the National Urban League, George Edmund Haynes. It also announced a special story hour with Ruth Parmenter, principal of the training school at Fisk University. Local African American parents were urged to bring their children out for a special Easter reading about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. In 1917, this article announced a mass meeting for African American leaders to discuss supplementing the milk fund for dependent children after public funds for milk were cut in half. In 1918, this article announced the colored Carnegie Library as one of 5 registration offices for African American women as war nurses in Nashville. And during the summer of 1921, the library invited Nashville's African American community out for a free movie showing of Rip Van Winkle. Unfortunately, the Nashville Public Library System sold the Negro branch of the Carnegie Library to a plumbing company in 1948 and closed the library in 1949. The board claimed the library was handicapped because it was in an out-of-the-way location. Within 2 years, the building was demolished to make way for the current Nashville Electric Service building. The Nashville Public Library used a bookmobile system to service African Americans until, in 1952, they built and opened the Hadley Park branch. The Carnegie Library building still exists on the campus of Fisk University. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is primarily used for student financial services. Overall, the 2 colored Carnegie Libraries of Nashville, Tennessee were a source of community pride for Nashville's African Americans. As academic and public libraries, these facilities filled a much-needed void and provided library services and facilities to African Americans at a time and place when various debilitating forms of racial injustice prevailed. I would like to also close with one final quote from Carnegie. Carnegie said, "There is not such a cradle of democracy upon the earth as the free public library. This republic of letters, where neither rank, office, nor wealth receives the slightest consideration." Thank you for your time and attention today.
Let's give Dr. Brandon Avon Sr. another round of applause. So how's that journey going, people? Are y'all tired? Well, plan on sleeping good tonight. Because John Sexton is back with the TSU Jazz Collegiate. Before they leave, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Lee Williams, who's going to give us our closing remarks.
Thank you. Feel like I should say the doors of the church is open, something like that. In all seriousness, though, I'm standing in the space that Dr. Mitchell occupied today. So I ask you to join me in praying that he's restored to his proper place next year. But we had a heck of a journey today. Let's give all of our presenters a round of applause. And of course, the Jazz Collegians, y'all never disappoint. But let's see where we've been today. Bridget challenged us to go out to Bellmead and think about some besides racehorses. She challenged us to look at that space through the eyes of the enslaved. From there, we went to Fort Negley, where Dr. Sutton, helped us to put that space in its proper context. It's one of the most important spaces in the city, and its significance is international. So we thank you for that. Then we flew a little bit with, we dealt with our colored troops, and Tina encouraged us to look at these colored veterans. You know, you can have a lot of debates about whether the Civil War was over slavery or not. You study history long enough, you understand the answer to that question really quickly. But when we look at what she discussed today, we realized that it was never a question for the soldiers that put on those blue uniforms. Then we flew for a little bit with Colonel Presley. And I didn't recognize her because I remember seeing her, she was always in uniform. So it was good to see her with her hair down, so to speak. But she talked about wing victory. And as she talked, I thought about that line from the Toni Morrison novel, which said, if you surrender to the air, you could ride it. And as we moved from there, Professor Wynn talked about women's suffrage. And there's a big celebration going on right now, and rightly so. But she informed us in many ways that the story is a bit more complex than some meeting at the Hermitage Hotel. Okay. From there, we discussed the murals of North Nashville. And this was important because, you know, in my mind, I thought about how, and be mindful, I know Dojo and a bunch of the artists. It demonstrated that their creativity, the artwork that they produce that sometimes we dismiss as graffiti, is really profound. And for those of y'all that managed to make it to the Frisk to see this, I defy any one of you to tell me that we do not have geniuses that walk amongst us. So in closing, I want to thank all of you who took time out to come here on Valentine's Day. And I know it's tough. I invited my students to come, and they were all like, Dr. Williams, it's Valentine's Day, right? I was like, bring your girlfriend, bring your boyfriend. They're gonna hear some good music, and you get a little smarter, and then you can do whatever you need to do for the rest of the day. So, in closing, and I know I sound like a Baptist minister here, but y'all bear with me. I encourage you to study your history. I encourage you to tell your stories. I encourage you to listen to marginalized voices, listen to the folks that we oftentimes overlook. Then come back and tell us about it in one of these settings. Thank you very much for coming out tonight, and God bless you, and we'll see you next year.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.net.